Lyle Butler, and I'm President and CEO of the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. And I am very excited to tell each and every one of you, thank you for being here. This year we broke an all-time record. There are 271 of you that felt this was an important for your community and for this region to attend this Regional Leaders Retreat. So give yourself a hand. I would first like to recognize our sponsors that are here today, and representing the sponsors from Sink Gordon & Associates, who is our platinum sponsor, Jim Gordon. Jim, would you please come to the stage?
The partners and staff of Sink Gordon & Associates would like to welcome all of you to the 2016 Regional Leaders Retreat. It's been our privilege to be the major sponsor for several years and again this year. Our firm began in 1946, and so this will be our 70th year serving the area and providing the highest quality accounting, auditing, tax, and consulting services in the region. We believe in the region. We believe and we continue to expand in the region. We've opened offices in Waterville and Clay Center in the last few years. And in addition to our 6 partners, we have a staff of over 50 people firm-wide. The sponsorship of this retreat is just one of the many commitments that we make to the region. We are active in most community organizations, serving and contributing along with you throughout the area. We know that a stronger region makes us stronger and our future brighter, and that's part of why we're all here today. Welcome. We have a great agenda for everyone today and tomorrow, and let the fun begin.
Scrolling on both of the screens, you have all of our sponsors, and I hope that during the next 2 days, you'll take an opportunity to thank these sponsors for helping to underwrite some of the costs. I would now like to ask, as I read your name, representatives from the following communities following companies to stand up, and we'll recognize them as a group. In addition to Sink Gordon & Associates, I would like to have representatives from Hawley Printing, please stand, Intrust Bank, High Tech, Buyer Construction, Opportunity Funding, Bruce McMillan Architects, and Flint Hills ATA Bus. Let's give these folks a round of applause and thank them. Well, planning for an event such as this takes a lot of work, and I would now like to recognize the planning committee that has been working really since last year on making today's event possible. And I'm going to call their names and ask them to stand. Everybody hold their applause until they're all standing. I'd like to have Dennis Beeson, who's president of the Junction City Area Chamber of Commerce. Megan Umscheid, executive director, the Wamego Area Chamber of Commerce. Jack Alston, executive director, Pottawatomie County Economic Development Corporation. Gary Stith, director of the Flint Hills Regional Council. Susan Jagerson, Junction City Area Chamber of Commerce. Caitlin McGuire, Junction City Area Chamber of Commerce. Brenda Hofler, Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Amanda Dempster, Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. And Nicole Webb, Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Let's give these folks a round of applause and thank them. Last year, we had a very successful leaders retreat. Your response, for those of you that were here, it was overwhelming, positive. We were moving forward, and there was a lot of excitement as we left a year ago. Here to recap briefly from last year is Lucy Williams, representing the communities of the region. So Lucy, please come forward.
I don't think you're going to see me over this podium, but Lyle said briefly. I don't know if Lucy Williams and briefly goes hand in hand, but okay. Okay, so where are we? Oh, right. Regionalism. Let's go back to January 17th, 2015. We, meaning all of us, all of you included, were wrapping up the Leaders Retreat. And the Junction City, Wamego, and Manhattan Chambers heard all of you loud and clear. Enough already. Enough talking about this thing called regionalism. Let's do something, and let's do it now. The one thing that I think we all can agree on is that we're all very good at talking. This year, we've put our listening ears on. The old adage, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, we should listen more than we talk. As the Beatles song goes, listen. Do you want to know a secret? Do you promise not to tell? Closer, let me whisper in your ear. Say the words you long to hear. Well, we're here to tell you that regionalism is alive and well in our region. February 2015 found 4,203 of us attending the listening tour supporting Fort Riley at the Junction City Convention Center. The region came together to support a huge economic driver in our community, Fort Riley, and it worked. They listened to us. That's regionalism. September 2015, 30 community members from all of our communities spent 2 days in Columbia, Missouri at the first inner-city visit. Not only did we learn about their region and how we can incorporate some ideas in our communities, but it gave us time to get to know each other and learn what each of us values in our communities and region. Dennis Beeson, Greg Miller, Megan Umscheid, Jack Alston, thanks to each of you for sharing your community's goals. I believe we all became more respectful and supportive of each community's strengths and challenges. That's regionalism. The Flint Hills Regional Council is still going strong and doing great things for our communities. That's regionalism. The word teamwork may be overused and a bit cliched, but it certainly rings true when you have the opportunity to work with amazingly talented people who don't always see eye to eye, but are focused on a common goal, and most importantly, what's best for our region. This includes the chamber executives, the volunteer leadership, and each of our members. So you ask, well, where does that get us today? Do we have formal signed agreements among our 3 communities? No, we don't, but that's okay. What we do have is far more important. We have a plan. We have sharpened our focus and become more strategic in how we address the strengths, the challenges, and opportunities in each of our communities. On Wednesday of this week, the economic development staffs of our 3 chambers and the Pottawatomie County Executive Development Corporation came together, unbelievably, for the first time to begin the process of developing, coordinating, and implementing 4 new targeted advisory groups, or as we all lovingly know them as TAGs. This group is committed to working together on a regularly scheduled basis to discuss what is important, not only for our individual communities, but how it can positively impact our region. The TAGs. What are the TAGs? Workforce. We've heard it over and over again from every single community. This is a major issue affecting all of us. Working together in this area benefits us all, period. Asset development. Businesses coming together want land, buildings, or a combination of both. We all know that each of our communities have some assets that the other communities do not. We want these companies in our region, we want them in our region. We don't want them in Topeka, Omaha, or Salina, or anywhere else. It makes sense for us to have a master list of assets that we can all work together from and with. Third tag, military affairs. If the listening tour taught us anything, it showed us how so very important Fort Riley is to our region. There is power in numbers. 4,203. Let's continue to show the Department of Defense and anyone else who will listen that we all value, appreciate, and support our troops, and we want them in our region. The fourth is economic development. Not to sound like a broken record, which I can just repeat until I wear you down, but each community has strengths and assets that the other communities don't. It's not a major secret. We each have challenges that the other communities do not. Let's work together to enhance the strengths and work on the challenges. We want companies to come to our region. We want companies to come to our region, not Kansas City, not Omaha, not Wichita, but Junction City, Wamego, and Manhattan, period. As John F. Kennedy said, geography has made us neighbors. History has made us friends. Economics has made us partners, and necessity has made us allies. He also said there are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction. Or as people who know me say, that's another fancy word for being in a fur-lined rut. So let's roll up our sleeves. Let's work this weekend to promote regionalism. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and officially welcome again to a great leaders retreat.
So what's this panel all about? When Lyle came to us and said, we got to talk about workforce, so we sort of broke it down into the following categories. First category is, well, recruiting, But moreover than that, it's employability. What are folks looking for in employability skills? Because to each one of these panelists, they're different things. Secondly, how do we recruit? What are some of the methodologies that we're using to recruit, not only just using the newspaper or working with Joe Bruner at Kansas Works, but also working with folks with social media and the like, and besides the normal methodologies. And then lastly is how are we retaining our workforce? And in particular, how are we retaining young people? Because they have a tendency to move a little bit more than other folks, or us graybeards. Okay. So there's human resource managers are overcome with a lot of challenges. And if you don't know that, just think about it. They've got the Affordable Care Act, you know, that wonderful new law on their desk all the time that they've got to pay attention to and fulfill all those requirements, fulfill all the requirements of the National Labor Relations Board and all the changes that are coming there, and for fulfilling all the requirements of the Human Resource Commission. These folks are busy, besides doing all the recruiting. So instead of having CEOs, no offense, guys and gals, and plant managers, no offense, we decided to have this panel with the people in the trenches. And they are Tracy Faulkner from Artec Tool and Machine, a very specialized machining and tooling company based in Wamego. But Tracy has a very long background, not only in human resources. He's been a member of the State Society of Human Resource Board. He currently sits on the State WEO Board, and that's something else, Workforce Investment Act. But he's also been in the hospitality industry, and he will speak about the skills that Artec needs. Very heavily specialized, important skills. Secondly will be Jan Cooper, who's got a long background at Westar, and she is Human Resource Manager at Florence Manufacturing, which you probably know has been in the paper recently. And she's going to talk about her recruitment methodology and how she's addressing with some of the challenges at Florence Manufacturing. Third, we're going to switch over to white collar. And Jeff Fleming from Civic Plus is going to speak about how to recruit IT, webmasters, software developers, and get them to come to Manhattan and stay in Manhattan. Now, you'll also notice that Jeff has a slight accent. So he's also from a different part of the country, and he recruited himself here. And his accent's not quite as foreign as mine, so, you know, we'll forgive him. And then lastly is Ginny Locanthe, who many of you know, you should know. She has been very, very active in our Human Resource Management chapter. She's Assistant Vice President at Community First National Bank and Director of Human Resources. And it says in here that she's been in HR for eight years. That means she started when she was 15. And she's also going to address how to work with millennials. Being a millennial herself, she can be able to address some of these situations. So we're going to start it off with Tracy, and we're going to give you 5 minutes apiece, and then there'll be questions and answers from the floor.
Good afternoon. My name's Tracy Faulkner. I'm the Director of Human Resources for Artec Tool Machine in Wamego, Kansas. Some of you out there know me, and when they say I've got 5 minutes to speak, you know I can't stay within those boundaries. So Trent, you might as well get me on the clock and start buzzing me now. Artec Tool Machine is located in the industrial park over in Wamego, Kansas. It was actually founded by a gentleman. It's a family-owned business. It was founded by a gentleman named Doug Ruth over 20 years ago. He and his wife started the business up. At this point in time, he does manufacture parts that weigh 60,000 pounds. We do a lot of contractual work with Caterpillar right out our back door and Caterpillar down in Waco. We do employ about 45 employees at this time, but we're looking to grow even more over the next 3 years. Of course, when the economy kind of tanked in 2009, he dropped down to 10 employees, but he was able to push on through and continue growing his company back. Recruiting in this field is not the easiest. Many HR managers like to sit behind a desk, and please, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but like to sit behind a desk and try to do everything electronically. I choose a different way. I've been to Nebraska, I've been to Missouri, I've been to Southeast Kansas, Southwest Kansas. You travel, you visit the schools, because since we do deal in specialized parts, you have to find the right people. We do train on site because what they learn in school, and that's the other thing, what these young people learn in the trade schools these days is the basics. We look for people that have CNC knowledge. So when we do bring them in, they're not going to know the type of parts that we make because we have the secret plans that nobody can copy. So we have to train them so they can learn how to make our parts. Same with the welding. Now, I am on the advisory committee at MATC for the welding program. I am a member of the Kansas Works State Board of Directors, the local Heartland Works State Board, and I also am volunteering for the Pottawatomie County EcoDevo. This is a problem we have, is how do we get the young people to come to Wamego, Manhattan, and Junction? How do we get them to come here and go to work? Because many of the college kids, when they graduate, they leave. It's hard to retain those people. So basically, when I go out on the recruiting trail, I have to be able to sell the area. So my target area sometimes is the kids that come from small communities. Because Wamego, smaller community in Manhattan, but it's like, you know what? Come to work in Wamego, Manhattan's just up the road. We got Tuttle Creek, we got K-State, we got many different things that it offers that they have not been exposed to. So you have to be able to sell the area. It keeps us busy because it's competitive out there. I mean, some kids don't want to relocate. Like I said, we have Washburn Tech, we have Flint Hills Tech. I went down to Liberal for Manufacturing Day this year, which is an event one time a year. The last 2 days I've spent at the Kansas Workforce Summit in Topeka. A lot of interesting information. And I'll tell you, if you've never been, has anybody in here besides Chris Mayfield go to the Workforce Summit the last 2 days? I mean, there was a lot of information there. We had an opportunity to meet the Secretary of Commerce. He's got a lot of good ideas. You know, his focus right now is for employers such as us. He's more in tune and more in tune with the tech schools, the community colleges. Because a lot of kids these days, they go to college, and I know it's expensive. And many of you probably have kids that aren't even, have decided what they want to do when they get out of high school. But just to give you an idea, 40% of kids after 2 years drop out of college. 40%. Our deficit right now on default loans is $1.3 trillion. The average wages for kids coming out of college is $27,000 right now. So that's what another thing is when I go out and talk to kids at the tech schools and so forth. These are things you got to look at. I can bring you in and start you out at $35,000 a year. Plus, I'm going to pay 100% of your health insurance for you. You just don't find that anymore. You got to have the right selling tools to get the kids. It's just, it boils down to how to recruit, how to communicate, get your business name out there. Use every tool that you can within a cost and within a budget to post jobs. Because like I said, a lot of people just, you post your job, you wait for applicants to come in, you're trying to fill one position, you get 100 applicants. All right, pieces of paper, what it says about them on paper is great, but if you meet them face to face, you're going to get a better idea of who the person is. And so that's why I've always stressed is that get out and talk to people, meet them face to face, because it makes a big difference in your hiring process. How am I doing on time, Trent? Okay, just to wrap up, and then the thing is, when they do go out and recruit, I mean, like I said, there's specialized skills that we look for, and those skills are in welding, and we do have a welding program in MATC. So I've been talking with Jim Jeanette and working with his staff. You know, something we want to look at is maybe doing, having the kids come in, try to do some on-the-job training, or we try to hire the kids part-time in the afternoon. That's something we want to do again, hire these kids so they can get an understanding of what we do. And they also earn some money on the side. So therefore, they just don't get blindsided once they come in to work for us. But we're a growing industry. The manufacturing industry right now is having a tough time everywhere, but yet, you know, it's not as bad as it was back in 08 and 09. So we're going to continue to push forward. And if anybody has any questions, would like to speak with me afterwards, like I said, 5 minutes doesn't allow me to scratch the surface. But if you have any questions on the workforce or the workforce summit that we just attended, I've got a lot of information that I'd be more than happy to pass along. So my time's up. I'm going to pass it over to Jan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tracy. Much like Tracy, I could talk all day on this too, but I'll try to keep it down. So I'll be looking at Trent periodically. I am from Florence Manufacturing, and just to give you kind of an overview of what we do and how we do it, it kind of gives you an idea of the jobs we have and the skills we're looking for. But we start the manufacturing from start to finish. We bring raw material in the building, we fabricate it, we weld it together, we powder coat it, and we send out cluster mailboxes as a finished products. So you can see in there some of the skills that we need are very specialized, especially the welding, especially the powder coat, and we have different things that really make us unique as far as we have welders, but they're also aluminum welders. So those are just a few things besides the functions that you normally think of with the business. You have schedulers, you have buyers, you have the back office, accounting, HR. So I could go on and on that, but you get the idea that we have similar skills that we're recruiting for, but we have specialized skills that we're recruiting for as well. Just to kind of give you some of our recruiting woes, when the economy started picking up, when I started I'm on my 5th year here, it was like 159 people. And we quickly ramped up in the next few years, and we went from a primary first shift operation to a 3-shift operation with all 3 departments. So you can imagine what kind of recruiting we were trying to do. We tried everything you could think of. What I would really like to concentrate on, though, is some of the things that we did once we get some of the folks in, because ramping up that fast, we needed a lot of supervisors, we needed lead positions, we just needed everything. And the supervisors are the ones that we concentrated on the most, because just because somebody's a good doer doesn't necessarily mean they're a good leader. So we concentrated on some leading skills and what we needed to do. The first thing we did was sit down and say, okay, what do we want to see in these supervisors? What kind of skills? What kind of competencies? So we put together a competency. We knew, too, that they needed some help in some of the skill areas as well. So there was not only on-the-job training, but we also went into plan some formal training for them. So once we got our skills down, what they needed, we got the skill set, we got the competencies that they need, then we started prioritizing some of the things that we thought would be good for them to learn first and then build off of. That was, our supervisors, we had 2 times a month that they met with formal training, and that's not easy to do when they're on the line 12 hours a day. But we managed to fit that in, had good luck with it, started seeing some results. So then we decided to go down to the next level and work on some of the leads and some of the trainings and some of the skills that they needed. So that was one of the things that we do. That's probably more on the retention side than the recruiting side, but we found out that's very important, because you don't want to be recruiting new people in all the time. You want to keep the people that you've got and build on them and develop them. Some of the tools that we used that were maybe a little bit different was for recruiting and interviewing is we moved to a behavior-based interviewing process. Behavior-based, as you well know, is, kind of getting examples of what people have done before, how they've done situations, how they've treated things in the past. And one of the tools that we use is a pre-employment assessment, and we give those out to folks before they come into an on-site training, on-site interviewing. It's kind of an EQI based, so it comes out, it'll rate the competency area that they're taking that in, and then that gives you a basis for questions that also comes off the test. So it's very consistent, and that's some of the things that we really want to see is consistency and how to look for the skills and things that we're looking for. So with the behavior-based questions, those are nice and consistent, and we can give those out to hiring supervisors. And then also, it also gives you a role comparison for benchmarking in a national levels. And we can kind of see, okay, is this candidate, is it benchmark against somebody else in the same position somewhere else? Is it really something that somebody will work? Is it the good skills? So it looks like my time is running up. I could go on again forever, but again, as Tracy said, if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer or talk later on. So I'll give it to Jeff. Oh.
Well, thanks for having me at the event today. I enjoyed the food and everything. I want to thank the Chamber for providing that. I appreciate you guys having us. I want to talk a little bit about Civic Plus. It's a company that I work for here in Manhattan, over in Manhattan, and how we go about hiring and retaining quality employees. Who is Civic Plus? We are an e-government solutions company based in Manhattan, Kansas. We're founded in 2001. Our core product is Civic Engage, and that's a government-focused content management system that enables a local government entity to maintain their own website without having to have the high-level technical know-how that you would normally need to know in order to operate the back end. We are the national leader in municipal web design with over 2,000 clients in North America and Australia, and our mission is to make government work better. Can you show an example of our product there, Amanda? Link. Well, we'll move on to the next slide. I wanted to show you an example of the City of Manhattan website. That's something that we produce using our core product, Civic Engage. What do we look for? Our job families include everything from software development to sales. A lot of people think, we're a software company, so the main thing that we're doing is focused on software development and IT and everything, but we have the full gamut from sales to project management to training, consulting, et cetera. So we do have a wide variety of skill sets that we need to recruit consistently. We look for candidates that exemplify our core values and have a track record of success, in addition to having the technical aptitude that you would need in order to succeed in the position. We go through a lot of challenges in hiring ourselves. Experienced marketing and creative personnel leave, or they won't relocate to Manhattan. It's one of the challenges that we have. Marketing tends to be seen as more of a job that you see in larger cities, so sometimes it's harder to get them to see, hey, there's opportunities here in Manhattan. You just got to look for them. Entry-level salespeople have been another challenge. What we look for normally in that situation are people that come from a background where, they're selling in some context, whether that's retail or a little bit smaller models than what we do at Civic Plus. But just as long as they have experience with like goal-driven sales environments and things like that, then that's something that we like to take a look at. And if we can't find that, then a lot of times we'll seek to find people with a great customer service background that we can develop into those roles. As far as software development and quality assurance, I'm sure any of you in here that's ever tried to recruit that or aware that that's a competitive recruiting landscape, so that's something that we're up against there. And relocation to Manhattan has been a tough sell. When you're talking about higher level management positions or higher level software engineers or higher level talent that we would normally need, getting them to relocate to the area has been a challenge because there's a perceived lack of local opportunities. They say, well, if it didn't work here, then where could it work out, and things like that. So you're up against a few things there. How do we go about hiring top talent? One of the things that we've done is put together a hiring system. We actually adopted a hiring system called performance-based hiring, and it's a system of hiring based on Lou Adler's book, Hire With Your Head. That's available on the internet and everything. Amazon's a good source for it. But in this system, past performance is the objective selection criteria instead of some of the traditional biases that you normally would hire based on, like, do I like the person? You know, do they come off like they know what they're talking about, and things like that. So this really digs in and figures out what have they done in the past that makes me think they could be successful in this position. Having a system like this that's uniform, that's used across the organization, helps ensure hiring consistency, but it also helps us ensure legal compliance. So that's one of the things that's important to us. And we have scorecards that actually provide objective and a uniform way of evaluating job candidates instead of just one department evaluating one way, one department evaluating another way. So this is an example of what I mean by our scorecards. You see there's 3 different categories that we look at: basic fit factors, core competencies, situational fit factors, and it breaks them down into a variety of factors there. So adds it all up, tallies it up for us, and we kind of have an average score at the end that kind of tells us, is this somebody that's a good fit for the organization? Pay scale is another thing that's helped us out a lot. It's a system that you can utilize online. It's an online tool, payscale.com. You can check that out. But basically, it's helped us set a corporate compensation policy for ourselves. I mean, make sure that we're offering competitive pay that's consistent with what the marketplace is doing, and also helps us know that what we're paying our current employees is pretty competitive with what they would find in our area. So it's been a huge help for us. Recruiting strategies, I would say to post jobs where people will see them. One example is if you had positions where it wasn't necessary for them to be in Manhattan, or if they needed to, if they could be home-based or something like that, then post a job in high-traffic areas where someone will see the job and actually give them a chance to say no instead of just counting on people that are looking for jobs in Manhattan. So sometimes that can be a valuable tool there. And also, even when you're trying to get folks to relocate to Manhattan, post the jobs in the areas where a lot of that talent exists, and say, hey, this is a position that we have available, but you would need to relocate to Manhattan. It just kind of gives them a chance to say no instead of just never seeing the job in the first place. So it's a good opportunity there to potentially attract talent to the area. And I would make sure that each job posting has an effective employee value proposition. One thing you have to do nowadays with all the workplace options that folks have. Oh, sorry. Okay, I would wrap it up and just say that use LinkedIn and other social networking and niche sites to directly contact prospects. Make sure you invest in a good employee referral program, and the university recruiting is important as well.
They told me I didn't have to turn it on. Okay, great. Thank you to Jack and thank you to Chris for inviting me to be here. As Jack said, I'm with Community First National Bank as their HR director, and I wanted to share that I have the honor and challenge and opportunity to have been their first HR director. So if you can imagine what it looks like, a company without an HR director and just coming in and trying to make everything consistent, that's been what I'm working on for the last 4 years. Another thing that Jack talked about is just the breadth of responsibilities that fall into HR. So we do have a lot going on, and recruitment is just one of those things. But if there's anything that I've learned, especially recently, it's that recruitment is no longer something that you can just kind of wing and hope you get the right people to apply. More and more, I really think, especially in the competitive job market, you really have to target people, know what you're looking for, know who's going to be successful in the job, figure out how to determine during your recruitment process if that person fulfills those needs, and just go out and get them, because they just aren't necessarily going to be looking for you at the same time. So just a comment on recruitment. As a bank, one of the main positions that we hire for most often is bank teller. It's our entry-level position, and one of the reasons it has high turnover is just because we tend to hire part-timers and students, and just by that nature, they're a bit more transient than the other population. Especially if their major isn't finance or banking, they don't see their career there, they're going to probably leave after college. So it's imperative for us that we find the right person that's able to make an impact in the short time that they're with us. And one of the other things I wanted to talk about with employability is just the kinds of skills that we're looking for. There's, I think, an important distinction between technical skills and what is often referred to as soft skills. I've been doing a lot of reading on this lately, and soft kind of implies that it's not really important, maybe it's a nice to have, just not very hard-hitting, not very much of a priority. And so this one article that I read suggested reterming those non-technical skills, and maybe that would kind of communicate the importance, because everything that falls into what you think of as soft skills or non-technical skills are things like problem solving or communication, working with other people, being resilient, persistence, showing up at work on time, basic things like that are so important. And even if someone has great technical skills, those things that are really easy to measure, you may not have someone on your hands for very long or a very good employee, if they can't work well, play nice with others. So very important. But those non-technical skills are also a little bit more nebulous. They're a little bit more intangible and hard to measure. So I think that's one of our challenges as HR professionals, is to be able to really zero in and try to come up with the right behavioral questions to get to the root of the person and see if they've got those non-technical skills that are going to fit into your workforce. Jack also mentioned that I am a millennial and that I would tell you all how to work with millennials. So difficult, I know. No, one thing I wanted to say, though, is I am proud to be a millennial, but I don't like being pigeonholed. So that would, I don't know if I was born in the wrong generation, but what I would say to you is don't stereotype. Every generation's got its quirks, but it's throughout the whole group. You've got a diverse set of different people. I've never had any trouble showing up on time, and I've been with my jobs for a long time. So I think you might lose out on people if you decide to lump them into whatever generation that they're from. I will say that, wherever there are generalizations, there's typically a foundation in fact. Thank you. So some of the things that maybe millennials are lacking are some of the life experiences that the rest of the workforce can benefit from. So some of those non-technical skills that you've honed over your lifetime of experiences are something that they might need a little help with. And those are skills, life skills, that we all work to improve throughout our lives. So I guess cut them some slack and mentor them, give them a hand up and help them figure out the world, I guess. So I've been really fortunate to have great leaders in my life, and definitely know that I've benefited from them. So thank you.
You have a millennial when they text in sick. We have several minutes for questions, 10 minutes for questions. Don't anybody be the first one to raise your hand. Okay. Do signing bonuses assist in getting people to Manhattan or into the firm? Into the firm.
Yeah, we don't do signing bonuses, so I'm going to pass it on down.
This is not something that we typically do at Civic Plus. I mean, I'm sure we make exceptions occasionally, but I mean, I will say this about signing bonuses is if the move is all about the money to someone, to where, because the signing bonus is not going to be huge normally. I mean, it's not going to be something that's just going to be life-changing or anything. So if they're making the move just because of that, then I would question maybe, is this really a good move or anything like that? Not to say they're always bad. I mean, sometimes they work, but I mean, that might get them here, but is that going to keep them here long-term as opposed to really presenting the value proposition of that opportunity?
I will just echo Jeff, the same thing. I think it will help get people to the organization, but to be able to keep them, it's got to be a culture fit, and that's probably something that needs to be done prior to offering a sign-in bonus.
I've never really dealt with signing bonuses. The only time I did, basically they didn't fulfill it, so they had to pay the money back.
Two caveats, recognizing that everybody's resources are limited. Do you think that the community is doing enough to market itself to the outside Kansas, outside world, to attract people to want to come here or who have heard about it and have positive impressions to make it easier for you to recruit? Are we spending what dollars we have on that wisely?
I'm not sure as far as physically what we're doing or how we're handling that, but I know coming from the East Coast, basically where I came from, I'd never been to Manhattan, Kansas, had never been to Kansas at all, but I mean, you know, when I was being recruited to come out here, I thought that the Pacific Plus did a good job of presenting Manhattan and showing me kind of what it would be like to live here, what would realistically be the scenario when I got here. So I think that more could be done. That's why when I mentioned posting jobs in different areas and things like that, you know, it kind of helps expose us a little bit to folks, especially if there's like a niche talent community that's all of a sudden they start seeing a lot of jobs coming out of the Manhattan, Kansas area, then the buzz starts going, and maybe that's becomes a destination for graphic designers or something like that, you know, like a little hub or something like that. And that would take a long time to where that would be the case, but I mean, it would definitely help, and plus, and again, give people the opportunity to say no, and if nothing else, check out Manhattan and mention it to someone else they know and say, hey, check this place out. They really have a lot of jobs coming out of there. Maybe that's something that we should look into, you know, good place to live and everything.
We use recruiters sometimes, and the first time we tried to work with a recruiter out of state, I think the first inclination was Kansas. And so we invited her to come out just to see what Kansas was really like, and more importantly, Manhattan was really like. And she was sold. She was, you know, she liked it, so now she's back selling it. She refers everybody to websites on Manhattan. And so it's kind of a well-kept secret, but I think the secret's getting out as far as some of the recruiters that we're working with.
I grew up here in Manhattan. Well, I'm sorry, in Manhattan. You know, when you hear Manhattan, Kansas, most people will say K-State, Bill Snyder. You hear Junction City, you think of Fort Riley. I live in Wamego, and it's difficult to recruit to Wamego. And excuse me, sorry, Jack, but you and I have had this discussion. When I went on a road trip to do some recruiting, I went, and it's something we're working on, a brochure we could put together to, you know, feature Wamego. And we don't have anything, but that's something we're working on. But each city has its own recognition. You know, unfortunately, me growing up in this area, that's how I can relate to everything. But some people have never heard of this area. Like Jan said, Kansas? Really? What do they have to offer? You know, I think there was a story here recently. A lot of people are leaving Kansas for good and not coming back. How do we keep those people here? I don't have the answers. I'm going to leave that up to our government and see what they can figure out. But, you know, it's fortunately through word of mouth right now. So, did I just say something to stir something?
Well, let me try to answer that, and I'm not speaking for Lyle or Dennis, but I think the question revolves around, you know, strategy. In other words, to make it attractive, there's got to be a strategy. And in order to have a strategy, you got to build consensus. And I mean, and Dennis is working on the certified work-ready community, and we're doing work keys, and it's little baby steps before we even get to the strategy. So it's a real good question. And there's people like Joe Bruner that she's sitting over there. She spends all day trying to make us better. And we have a lot of really good people and especially HR managers, and especially people up here that are involved in strategy and consensus building and whatnot. There are issues like daycare and housing that nobody thinks about when we try to recruit people to the area. Uh-oh.
Well, my question actually feeds right into what you were just saying. Are there aspects of life in this region that you see that the cities could feasibly change that would make your jobs easier?
I calculated with some of the daycare providers that we could probably have another, in Pot County, probably another 100 people in the workforce if we had efficient, and I didn't say sufficient, I said efficient daycare. And there's some really strong, good efforts. We just need more of them, and we need them to work together. And in housing, I don't know, you know, the rate of housing is going to be critical to the development of the workforce. It's usually, you know, the workforce comes first and then the housing. But here in a lot of instances, you have to pay a lot for a house, and it hurts the recruitment. And Jeff and I talked about this before this session. So, and transportation too. I mean, you know, 24 is pretty tied up during the day, and so is Fort Riley Boulevard. So all those are issues that's part of the picture. Lyle, did I say that okay?
I will say we don't do a lot of recruiting outside of Manhattan, so I don't face that issue in my recruitment. But I don't know, I think Manhattan is a great place, the Manhattan community and surrounding areas. So, and the last gentleman asked a question about what we can do to market ourselves better. I don't know if we're doing any kind of videos, but you see those Michigan commercials or other state commercials. Kansas is a beautiful state. We've got a lot to offer. I'm originally from Oregon, and now I'm a Kansan, and I love it here. So, I don't know, get the word out, I guess.
A couple things I've thought about. I don't know how we would go about doing it, but maybe get together a community brochure. Because one of the things that holds people back that I've spoken with from relocating to the area is there's a perceived lack of opportunities outside of the one that they're currently considering. So maybe put together a brochure or something that showcases some of the jobs or the types of jobs that are at area companies. We could all share this and use it. Something maybe the chamber could put on or something like that, to where they would see, hey, if it didn't work out there, you know, potentially it could work out somewhere else. I have that layer of security there. I don't have to worry as much about that. And even, you know, there's more than one person involved in those decisions. I mean, if their spouse is relocating with them, then obviously there's going to be job opportunities. They need to take a look at it as well. So that could be an opportunity to help with that.
I'm going to take just a little bit different twist. If you know where we're located, we are located outside of Manhattan, out by the airport. And one of the issues that we have with some of our employees is they just can't get to work because they don't have transportation. We have had people walk, and that's 5 or 6 miles, so that's taken them quite a while. So one of the things I would maybe like to see a little bit more of is a little bit more public transportation, that we could have that opportunity to get more people out to our location. That's it. So, now's the time where there's a lot more fun. So let's get the workforce questions up on the screen. Okay. Let me switch here. So what we do now is each table is going to tackle a question, and you'll have 15 minutes to do that. And at the end of the 15 minutes, and of course you're going to appoint a table captain because you've done this before. You appoint a table captain, and then that table captain will report out. And you might be able to come up with 1 or 2 suggestions, but it's all going to be recorded and documented and sent out to everybody that's participating. So
just going to start with question 1. And this is for tables 1 through 6. Do you know who you are for tables 1 through 6? Do you? Okay. All right, good. Should the private sector be more involved in an advisory role, supporting curricula and programs in elementary and secondary education? This is not technical post-secondary education. This is elementary and secondary. And if so, give examples of ways they have been or should be involved. So, do you understand that? Okay. Any questions from 1 through 6? Okay, it's good for now from table 1. All right. Question 2. This is for tables 7 through 12. Should the private sector be advocating assessment tools which Jan and Jenny talked about in order to better understand a student's work abilities, and or should they be developing work-ready policy? If so, give examples of how. So tomorrow, we'll have a presentation. One of the panelists will give a presentation on work keys and work-ready communities. And those folks in Geary County and as well as Pot County should be knee-deep in that. It's something you can talk about at your table. Question 3, tables 13 to 18. That's over here. Okay. How should human resource managers be developing tools along with the corporate headquarters or plant managers to eliminate shortages in their own facilities and firms, and be working with education and workforce providers? And lastly, tables 19 to 23, how can the private sector be more accommodating to millennials? Now, I got this book up here called Workforce Crisis, and it was written 10 years ago. And all the same things apply, and it's got all sorts of good things on how to work with young folks. They didn't call them millennials back then. But I kind of want you to guess what they are. So give examples on how firms have made and should be making adaptions. So we didn't mention that Civic Plus has like a bar. They have wine and beer and treadmills and stuff. We didn't talk about that because we just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, questions. You've got 15 minutes. Everybody, the folks are going to type up your answers. So each table, which will have maybe a suggestion or two, the answers will be typed up. So we're going to start with Joe, or whoever the designated captain is at table 1. What specific non-academic? No, that's tomorrow. That's tomorrow's questions. Run once.
Do I start?
I think we got to get the right questions up there. They're tomorrow's.
Good seeing you, John. I'm going through it. I think you and Keith and I would go one.
Yeah, let's just do it that way. I'll read question 1.
We do a lot of what you were saying.
Should the private sector be more involved in an advisory role supporting curricula and programs in elementary and secondary education? If so, give examples of way they have been or should be involved. Table 1.
Yes. Yes, absolutely, they should be involved. I think the best thing you can do is to have your private sector in the schools, and you're growing what you need by being in there. And we've talked about STEM programs in our school system right now, which are partnered up with the university as well as local businesses. We have students in all grade levels using iPads and laptops and all kinds of technology. We have families and businesses coming in to educate our students on how to work on these programs. We have robotics where they're entering contests after school. Before school, they meet to do this. There are businesses that are partnered up where they bring in their technology pieces to work with our students. So I think we're going in the right direction. Soft skills are extremely important, of course, such as communication and having to adapt to challenges that come along, some of the things that we discussed in our group. But along with that, we can't forget about the academics and problem-solving skills. Oftentimes when you put them in a situation where you just give them a bunch of stuff and say, figure out how to build this, you're giving them those engineering skills with the tools that they have. And those we have had adults in our schools from elementary all the way up to the high school level. We have partnered up with the Manhattan Area Technical College, with associations such as Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Lots of organizations are involved in our school system. Fort Riley, we have a lot of soldiers that come into the schools, actually take some of our students on base and show them the way that things are working there. So there's lots of role models that our kids may not be exposed to, but once they get into that passionate phase, they go with the person that's right there to also mentor them along the way. So
Great.
I think it's extremely important to have these there. And people that are in this room can also join the site councils and PTOs, even if you don't have a child in the school. I think that's one way to let them know what's available to them that they may not have been exposed to. And I think it's all about exposure and making it relevant to them, and at the same time not making it seem like if they make a mistake, it's a bad
Thank you.
thing. I can go on forever.
Yeah, you can continue that discussion with the young ladies behind you that will type everything. But that's passion. That's great. Table 2.
Thank you. I've been nominated. Big surprise here. Our table also agreed that we definitely should be involved in an advisory role and kind of a participatory role with the schools. It sounds like there's a lot of great things already happening, but we must be in a different area because none of us have done those things. So we would love the opportunity to come into the classrooms and either teach or just present a little bit about our business, and also, especially for high school students, communicating the opportunities that are available to them if they stay in the area, and hopefully that will retain people in our area. Another thing that I wanted to share is I was sent a video, I think it came by way of Joe Bruner, from Randy Watson with the Kansas Board of Education. And if you haven't seen this video, I really recommend it. They did a big study, a focus group, where they asked business owners, what does a successful young person in Kansas look like? What makes them up into who they are? And basically, and I'm not going to get the numbers exactly right, but academic skills was only 20-25% of making a successful person, and most of the rest, 80%, 70%, was actually these non-technical soft skills that we talk so much about. So the conclusion of the speech was to say that, the education board hears you, and we're going to see what we can do to help support business. So I took that as a really optimistic thing. So I'm glad we're talking about this. Anything else, group? No.
Great job. Great job.
Oh, yeah.
Table 3.
So we agreed. We said yes. We had a lot of great ideas. I just want to talk about one of them. The one thing that we talked about that actually we at Civic Plus do this already, but I know that others do as well. We actually have teachers come to our office and talk through some of the positions we have open, some of the opportunities that we have available to us, knowing that they're teaching kids that are not necessarily ready for that yet, but to help them understand what it really looks like when it's in reality as opposed to theory. And then the other thing that we do is we actually, so those same teachers then bring their students in, and they either are shadowing some of the people that work for us and seeing what they do, or they are just having conversations and asking questions about marketing, sales, project development, software development, those kinds of things. So just letting them understand the opportunities that are out there and helping them understand actually what it looks like doing the job.
Table 4.
All right, I too was nominated, I guess. We had a lot of very similar ideas as the other tables, and we definitely agree that yes, there is a need for private in both levels. Initially we were thinking more secondary, but really all levels. Get them started young. Let those students know what is out there, those opportunities. Really have the private sector educate the schools as well as those students, those individuals who will be in the workforce, on what skills are needed, what is out there, the fact that you don't need the college education to go ahead and move forward. There are a lot of great programs out there already, between ag programs, introducing the kids at the schools currently, great mentoring programs, and we agree that we just need to kind of keep up on those. So anything else, table? Oh, there is a huge limit. Ooh, not finished. We also see an issue that there is a bit of a hindrance. There's an issue where there's generally an 18-year break because there's a limit of liability issues. So trying to figure out how we can get those younger students who are available and willing actually able to work. Thanks, Karen.
Table 5.
Okay, we're at the disadvantage because everybody said everything that we came up with. But anyway, some of the things we discussed was Junction City has a job shadowing program where the kids can come and spend a day with a policeman or construction or whatever they think they might want to do, and they come and spend half a day maybe with someone. Funding through the private sector might help with this program. Entry-level jobs through the city so the kids can start developing job skills. You show up on time, you wear what you're supposed to wear to work, you talk respectfully to the boss or whatever, which can help make them better employees for the future. Access to counselors and advisors so we can find the students that don't necessarily want to go to university but maybe are good with their hands or creative, an artist, or somebody that just wants to go build a house for somebody or create a business here in town that they can be proud of when they drive by it. So it sounds like we have a lot of good things going on, but maybe we need to learn from each other. We have a city manager here. We have a woman here that's busily involved with the school. So I think, again, regionalism, we can learn and grow from each other.
Table 6.
You think you are at a disadvantage. So the question is, should the private sector be more involved in an advisory role supporting curricula and programs in elementary and secondary education? And we thought the easiest thing would be to answer no. I will now sit down. I think the situation sounds like to us that the schools would very much like that to occur. Businesses want to solve a problem of employees not coming out of school ready for work, and so those programs do exist already through career and technical education advisory committees, site councils, PTOs, all the things that we've already talked about. Basically, I think what we've got is a situation where there's a bit of a mismatch, where businesses want to do that, schools want that to happen, but it may not be happening as much as we'd like. So I think basically it comes down to increasing awareness of those things, job shadowing programs, private employers reaching out more like Civic Plus is doing, in order to make those things match up.
Very good. Now, for Table 7, the question is, should the private sector be advocating assessment tools in order to better understand a student's work abilities and or Should they be developing work-ready policy? If so, give examples of how.
I think the thing to say here is we really struggled with this question, and I think we thought we were in the first group rather than the second group. Our conversation tended to stay at a little higher elevation level, discussing the differences in generations and what kids are and are not coming to us with. I think the closest we got to sort of answering this question is kids are not getting the opportunities to learn job skills early enough in life. When I was 8, 9 years old, I was mowing lawns trying to earn money to buy a bicycle. I had a paper route. Kids don't get to mow lawns anymore. It's all taken over by landscape companies with these big, fast machines that run around real fast and they move from yard to yard. Kid with a lawnmower can't compete anymore, or it's considered too dangerous. Same thing with a paper route. I carried 125 papers. Most parents would, I was gone for hours on my bike. Most parents these days wouldn't let their kid go out for hours on their bike delivering papers. The opportunities are gone for kids to start learning a job when they're 10, 12, 13, even 16, 17 years old. So I think the challenge is, I'm not going to answer this exact question, but the challenge is how do we create those opportunities for kids to learn to be successful, to show up on time, to dress appropriately. When I was mowing yards, I had to go out and sell myself. How do we help kids learn to do that? So that's where our table was at. If we didn't answer the question, I apologize, but I think that is a fundamental question for us. How do we create opportunities for kids in the current culture we are in?
Table 8.
Okay. We also struggle with our question, so you weren't alone. And we probably answered the first one better than the second one, so I don't know what that means about this second question, but we think we're pretty bright, but maybe we're not. Yes, I guess we want to be an advocate. That's the right thing to say. How? We don't know. I think that's a difficult answer. We don't have the magic bullet. We don't know what to do. We had a very similar situation, much like yours. We really weren't listening. This was our own conversation. We felt like, if anything, there's, again, and we go back to it's sort of become a buzzword today, so congratulations on the soft skills word. I think everybody's going to remember that today. We felt like there's a real lack of soft skills for the most part. We don't know how we as an industry or those of us in business can help promote that within our schools. My wife's a grade school teacher. I know what she has to teach to, and it's not teaching soft skills, trust me. Unfortunately, it's teaching how to take a test. So again, communications, time management, problem solving, et cetera. We hope that businesses, the private sector, can train people to do those technical skills that they need. But having kids, young adults walk out of school with those soft skills, it's clearly not being taught by the parents as much anymore, maybe. So how does that fall onto, unfortunately, our education system and or the private sector to help push that? Is it offering things on the weekends that kids can sign up for to be a part of through the private sector? We know those things are out there. Do we need to be more advocates of those types of opportunities to get kids involved in careers early, or at least have an excitement about a career early? So again, we felt like those soft skills cross over to all career fields, so maybe if we focus on those can make a greater impact down the road. So,
Table 9.
We didn't have a problem discussing this. I walked into that, didn't I? I told them I usually don't speak till the last day. All right, work, private sector work. We wanted to add another title in here. We're talking about students, but we're also talking about applicants. I work with Mac over here, who is a wonderful resource for the community because he does the Soldier for Life Transition Assistance Center, which used to be the ACAP. Now, he probably won't say a whole lot, but he's got a wealth of knowledge. Just recently, I learned about the Work Ready Initiative, and that was through our economic development. It's also called Work Keys, and then there's also Soft Keys. It was mentioned at the end here. These things, the Work Ready Initiative, certifying your community that you have certified, qualified workers in your community is what employees or businesses are looking for. Can we come to that community? Can they do more than flip burgers and flip pancakes? Can they run my business? Can they run a medical establishment? The Work Ready Initiative and the Work Key Initiative, which has been out there for years in Illinois, Indianapolis, and Kansas, our part of the neighborhood, is starting to get introduced to this. Joe Bruner, she came to us with it. I want to take the test just because there's 3 levels, and they said there was one person that qualified at the top. But this is for people who don't have those college degrees. It's for people who do have college degrees. Maybe you have a talent that doesn't fit the ACCT. But the Work Skills Initiative is definitely something we need to have going. We talk. We need employers, not employees. Employers to get off the pot. I want these initiative folks to come to work for me. That was said right here with I got Jim. I got some really good folks sitting here. These guys are really knowledgeable. These gals are knowledgeable. We need the sergeant in the field. It's time to go. Who's going to get in charge of that? Who's going to take charge? Because right now we can come up with all these great ideas, but who is going to put it to work? Who's going to put it in place? I'm ready. I don't work. So if you need somebody to
Table
jump on the
10.
wagon.
Please. You only have, now, since we destroyed all the time, you only have a minute to give
I can keep it to a minute.
You've got to keep it to a minute.
In short, I think one thing that would definitely help is have assessment tools that tie into qualifying, asking open-ended questions for employees coming in, how they handle themselves in difficult situations, what has been some of their success stories they've had. And I think, frankly, setting out expectations. Have a little come to Jesus meeting with these millennials and others that may have been given a ribbon for coming in last place to make them feel good. In business, that's not always the case. So I think sometimes having a realistic expectation for these individuals and saying, hey, you need to be here by a certain time. If you're not, you're going to get a write-up. And after multiple write-ups, you're gone. Welcome to life. That's it.
Table 11.
Hi, everyone. I am standing, actually. Just wanted you to know. I've got heels on, too. Our table 11, actually came to consensus, and we thought Work Ready was a really good idea. Being in education at Manhattan Tech, we are familiar with Work Keys. We've worked with our local Workforce Development Board on that, but many of the employers at the table were not really familiar with what the term Work Ready actually is or what it could mean. And so I think that our table thought, we're for it. We understand the concept and we like the concept, but we'd like to know how it could be implemented and how industry might know a little bit more about it.
To sit there and tell me to stop. Next table, 12.
Well, everybody stole a lot of our ideas too, and I'm now told we have to keep it to a minute. So it was a tough question, one that we went kind of back and forth on. The assessment tools, are they given at the correct time? Sometimes you take them before you're hired, sometimes you take them after you're hired, and then what's the follow-up? Is there any follow-up? And if there is follow-up, is it long-term? I think those are keys to anything to do with assessment tools. And then Work Ready, people talked about it, but you always have that work-ready time. What job do you not go into that you don't have a learning curve? Do you have a kind of time frame where you have that newness, I guess? So did we answer it correctly? We don't know, because we did think it was a tough question. The other thing that we talked about right at the end was age requirements. I started working when I was 10 years old at my parents' newspaper. Granted, it was just emptying trash cans, but still, I was learning. Now you have to be 18 to get a lot of jobs, or I think 16 for restaurant industry. I could be wrong there. But the age requirements, I think, are limiting what kids are learning so they are ready once they get out of high school. So.
Okay. Table 13 through 18 will have the following question. How should human resource managers be developing tools along with corporate headquarters or plant managers to eliminate shortages in their own facilities or firms and be working with education and workforce providers? That was a tough question. So let's start with table 13.
I appreciate that, Jack, because now I got to answer it first. So
It was a difficult question. We didn't really understand exactly where they wanted to go with this question. So what we came up with was how to eliminate shortages was to plan better in the future. I think a lot of our companies are reactive, not proactive. What do we need? So we can go to Manhattan Area Technical College, tell them what kind of skills these trade companies are going to need when NBATH comes in. That was one of the things we talked about was planning. The other one would be maybe interpersonal skills, I think. We talked about communication. The new generation coming in maybe doesn't have as strong as interpersonal skills. They have a lot of technical skills, a lot of hands-on with their devices, or whatever you want to call it, but maybe not being able to talk to people. So that was the other thing. And of course, the answer is yes. I think that we need to work with those education and workforce providers to communicate better what we need ahead of time instead of being reactive, be more proactive.
Table 14.
We really focused on smaller business, but really, oh, hello. Didn't think I needed that. Forecast and then, communicate with your educators to train your workforce, but more importantly, and I guess specifically in smaller business, try to avoid the problem altogether by retention. Also start early, perhaps go to high schools, even before college, get to know people and really stick with them and mentor and groom those young people so that they do have those skills, but also as parents to do that too. Offer careers instead of jobs as a millennial. That's huge. We aren't just looking for a paycheck. We're looking for a career and an experience of a place to work. You really want that experience. So flexibility is key, but also be a place that someone would want to work.
Table 15.
Well, we had a great conversation here. I don't think we solved it, certainly, but I think the bottom line is we realize there is no magic bullet. It takes a lot of hard work, takes a lot of time. We looked at it from the beginning of the hiring process. If you have a particular culture in mind, you want to hire to that culture. We looked at making sure that your company is out there being talked about positively. The millennials, if we want to talk about the millennials, are looking these days to work for a company that they feel good about and have had good things that they've heard about. They want lifelong learning. So while there's the shortage out there, we'd also ask the question, why are people leaving that existing company? We also believe that there's got to be a lot of buy-in when somebody is coming into the company, that they feel they have some ownership in some of the responsibilities there. If everybody takes on that ownership, they too feel that they've got a part of it. We talked about lifelong learning. We talked about always recruiting, that you can't just look for people when you have the job opening. You should always be looking around. There's people in this room right now that maybe are potential employees for any of these people here, and you've got your list. Maybe the timing's not right now, but it could be down the road. So everybody's recruiting at one time or another. You need to have your list and ready for that.
Table 16.
Yeah, here at table 16, we kind of veered off path, maybe went a little bit different direction, and had Jack come maybe give some words of wisdom for us. And we took a step back and decided that HR and senior leadership really need to get on the same track. We have a wide variety represented here at our table, and some of the folks here have 1,300 people working with them, and others have 2 or 3. And it was interesting listening to everybody talk and just mention how, well, I work hand in hand with my HR director every day, and we have daily meetings or weekly meetings, and other people say, well, I view HR as an adversary or someone who maybe just is a company man. So we feel those two teams need to come together and really work together to make sure that both employment and senior leadership are on the same page and are moving towards the same track.
Table 17.
So once we really wanted to talk about the millennial question, but once we focused on the shortages, we really didn't come up with any solutions for short-term strategies for shortages, but I think the feeling was we really needed to grow our own, and that dealt with many of the things that have been mentioned as far as getting into the schools, mentoring, shadowing, just even guest speaking, and then after school components. A great example over at Gary County Community hospital with your Medical Explorer program in the high school, and then even in the construction trade for the challenge with the age and getting into some structured approved programs for younger kids. But grow your own for long-term solutions to those shortages seem to be more the key.
Table 18.
Table 18 had some really great ideas that came forward, and they were quick, so we were done before the first question was answered. Number one was our ideas was to create a referral network, and that's a B2B model. It's businesses connecting to each other for their employment needs and letting positions known to each other so that if they have overqualified or even underqualified candidates, that they could be shared. Also, internships and vertical integration. Companies have a presence already on the KSU campus, and it's housed in the K-State Foundation building, and it's with a dedicated workspace for interns. And during the summer, the full-time employment they give during school a few hours a week. It has a proven excellent hire rate for talented graduates and also can be integrated at a high school model for 4 years of apprenticeship. Our keyword on that is farrow to finish approach. Full-time summers, few hours daily during the school years, creates a good chance to hire technical skilled workers right after graduation. Kudos to USD 475 because they have a great model and it's a good example of this.
Great. Question 4 from tables 19 to 23. How can the private sector be more accommodating to millennials so that they can quickly become more productive or productive members of the workforce? Give examples of how firms have made or should make adaptations. Table 19. 1 minute, please.
We talked about the importance of flexible work schedules, time off, time with family, the importance of communicating more openly the operations and issues of the company, the need for clear expectations of employees and specifically job descriptions with millennials, and also the importance of onboarding and orientation once they are hired.
Table 20.
First thing we wanted to do was define a millennial. That was somebody born in the 80s to the 2000s. Apparently I'm not there because I write in cursive, and I was told that was an obsolete writing style by one of the millennials. So anyway, bring them on board and make them feel part of the team. You have to value them, make sure that they are held in value, and assign them to activities within the organization that helps them get there with that. The benefit structure is important. I was told that pay isn't that big a deal. I'm not so sure about that, but what is a big deal is a flexible work schedule with paid time off as opposed to maybe sick leave and vacation pay.
Table
make
21.
sure we do group hire, make sure that they're going to fit into the social structure of the people they're working with, and then mentor them within the organization.
All right, great. Table 21, Trent's about ready to kill me.
We had a great discussion here. The biggest thing with millennials that we know of, Mike, our training guy somewhere in the room, he's a millennial. Speed. And everything has to happen with speed. Get them on board with training, mentorship, apprenticeship right away. If they get in your organization and you don't grab a hold of them, you've lost them. They want to learn so fast. They're walking around with phones like this. They're not on Facebook, all of them, everything. They're learning that quick. Our thing is, for our business, we need to bring them in and let them know that thing will not read a tape measure for you. So there's no reason to have it with you. But anyway, that being flexible, your old means and methods of how you did business may not be applicable anymore. Be willing to change those. And get them involved outside of your business. Corey had mentioned get them involved in chamber, take them to chamber, make that be a part of their job. Give them a little time off so they can go do that, so they understand how the community and everything works outside of business.
Table 22.
The general consensus was that millennials work to live instead of living to work. And so that is a different mindset than what our parents had and what we have. We only have one millennial at our table, so the rest of it we just made up to fit. So we think that benefits are very important to millennials: sick leave, maternity and paternity leave, complimentary food and beverage. It sounds like they're going on a flight. Employee relationship building within the company and employee relationship building for employees and their families, child care, time off, work from home opportunities, especially with computers nowadays, employees referring other people to them, and one line that I liked was, get a couple of good ones and they will recruit more.
Great. Table 23.
Okay. We did not have any millennials at our table, so our first response was, why shouldn't they just acquiesce to the rules we already have in place? But we realized that wasn't the right answer. So the only thing that we talked about a lot that beyond what was already discussed was dress code and policies. In particular, we had a lot of discussions about tattoos and piercings, and recognizing that maybe we need to be a little more flexible about that, as well as social media and the use of that during the work hours. So those are the couple of the other areas that we talked about.
Thank you. And in closing, I'd like you all to give another round of applause for our outstanding panelists today. We are really, really lucky to have such an outstanding group of human resource managers in this area. And, you know, I'm blessed by being able to work with them on an ongoing basis. And I think all of the folks in this room want to reach out to their HR people, give them a hug maybe or something like that. But tomorrow, you're going to hear from the public sector. You'll hear from the other side of some of the ways they're addressing some of these issues, and then have a whole set of questions with them. So thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.
Right now, we're going to give a brief update. Jesse, come on up. Jesse Romo is the director of our regional airport that serves our region and provides those of us in business, public, university, and Fort Riley with some great service. So, Jesse, I think you're celebrating close to your one-year anniversary.
Thank you, Lyle, and I understand that I am the only thing standing between you and break. So just like flying MHK, I'm going to try and make this quick and easy for you. Thank you, yes. That wasn't the end, though. So, okay, we're going to do a quick year in review for MHK in 2015. We have commercial, military, general aviation. Those are three categories of aviation as defined by the FAA. We've got all three present at the airport, all going strong. Several projects going on, a lot of staff changes, not just me. 5 out of a total of 9 actually turned over last year. And with all that going on, we still were able to move the ship forward, so we're pretty happy about that. I always get asked a lot of questions about the terminal. Well, a highlight is substantial completion was done in March of 2015. Doors are open, that thing is fully operational, and it is pretty. If you haven't had the chance, please come out and visit. We'll give you a tour. Phase 2, next question I always get asked, so when's it going to get done? Well, it's true with people as it is with construction. It's easier to tear things down than build it up. And demolition went really well, and now we're out there still playing with dirt. There's some challenges there. Since I'm short on time, I really can't get into it. Thank you. Next. We have our FBO. This is a great project going on out there. This is some renderings of what the new fixed base operator facility is going to look like. Kansas Air Center is getting a new home on the other side of the airfield. They do service all three, general aviation, military, and commercial airline services, so they play a vital role in the operation at the Manhattan Regional Airport. There's going to be a great looking facility. If you go out there now, the crew is out there doing snow removal yesterday. They're putting up siding. They got the framing done. They're going to be done around June, first week of June of this year. Other projects going on, we've got some drainage improvements along Airport Road. We have site utility improvements in parking lot going along with that FBO facility. We've also got a military entrance road being built off of Skyway Drive that will pave the way, so to speak, of new opportunities of commercial development. And let me take you through the numbers. You know, I love posting on social media as much as possible, and right there, that's a 757 American Airlines for a charter operation. And the bottom right is a 737 from Southwest. People just got so excited to see Southwest flying out of Manhattan, but that is a charter, not scheduled airline service. But charter operations are very important to us. Not only are they providing services for athletics, but also for the military. And we've seen those activities jump up quite a bit in this past year. 13 and 14, you can see that we're in the 40s. We jumped up to 61. Employments, we're still growing. It's a small growth, about 600 there. But we are still over 63,000 employments for 2015, and we're very happy about that, along with all of our airport operations that are continuing to grow at slow but steady rates. And you can see how categorically it breaks out. Even though people don't really understand general aviation as much as they do airline, because that's normally what's utilized, general aviation includes everything from charter operations, business aircraft, air ambulance providers, aerial applicators, even recreational flyers. All that put together, that is our main driver of activity at the airport. AC is the air carrier service, which is American Eagle. And then we have our military activity as well, which is also seen a tick up in 2015. It's very important for an airport not just to be located in a community, but be a part of it. So what do I mean by that? You got to get out there, you got to engage the community, you got to make sure that you all understand this is your regional airport. We're here to serve you. So how can we partner together? We did a lot of events last year. As soon as I took over the position, we started arranging different partnerships. The first one we had was with the FAA. We did a pilot safety briefing. We had 11 people registered. About 40, 50 people showed up. It was a great turnout. That weekend, right afterwards, we also had the Girl Scouts come out in force. 85 of them were earning aviation patches. Over 100 attendees. They got to do a touch a truck, touch a plane type activities. All the girls there, you can see, you know, doing the wings picture. Don't worry, I won't make you do that. And then we also give tours. Now, this is the Manhattan Chamber. If any of your groups, organizations, you feel like you'd like to have a tour, please give me a holler. We'll set that up for you. It's a great opportunity for us to show off the terminal. I swear that's selfie by duress. This is USD 383. The teachers took a day off, and it was just a chance encounter I had with an individual that worked at USD 383. He said, hey, when we have a day off, can we come out and see your airport? Absolutely. So we got to talk about STEM activities. We got to talk about how they can incorporate that into their lesson plans, and we look forward to hosting more of them and their students in the future. We also had candy canes and airplanes occur in December. Now, that's an event that Salina actually took on with K-State over there at the Polytech campus, and they let us use the name, and we're going to keep growing the event. It's a great opportunity to do partnership with different organizations, businesses. This one was a little small to start, but it was great to see the kids out there doing crafts. They got to make holiday cards for the troops and mail that out, as well as see Santa arrive by a Cessna 182. So it was a really fun event, and that all occurred at the fire station. Then we have a brand new terminal. You know, we decided we needed to decorate this thing up. And so for the holidays, we put a tree out there. We threw some ribbon on the pillars and hung ornaments all over the place. And we said, how can we celebrate this more? Should we do a tree lighting ceremony? Well, that's been done quite a bit. What if we did a customer appreciation day? Because at the end of the day, it's all about you. I mean, this is what's the driving force of the success of Manhattan Regional Airport, are the people actually using it. So to show our appreciation, we had gifts out there, treats made available all day long. And throughout the day, this started at 5 a.m., because our flights are scattered throughout the day. And we decided to highlight local vendors as much as possible. And we also had some swag there with the flymhk.com, hand sanitizers under 3 ounces, good to go through TSA. We had a quartet sing carols to the passengers as they deplane. It was just a nice, great event, a great opportunity for us to thank everybody. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Twitter. We had other things going on and other changes. We do listen to our customers, and when we have feedback and good ideas, we try to incorporate them. This was a change in our stanchions and the way we do screening in the morning because American Airlines decided to change their schedule and put 2 flights together 20 minutes apart. And so to help expedite the screening process for TSA, we set up 2 lines that you're going to Dallas, Chicago, and that way they can prioritize which flight was going out first. I don't have pictures from this latest storm, but this was Thanksgiving, and it was not just snow. Snow's fun to plow, but ice is just horrible. Ice is not nice in the aviation world, and trying to get that off pavement, trying to get that off planes, just takes a whole big effort. And these guys were out there doing de-icing on general aviation as well as the commercial activity that's going on that week, and nothing looked better than seeing those pock marks that Saturday afternoon when the pavement started to thaw at the ice from below. So parking is always a question too that I get asked about. If you've been out to the airport lately, you saw that in mid-November, we put up new temporary parking lots. Those are the ones shaded in purple there. We realized about 114 new stalls. We wanted to make sure that we had adequate parking for the season that was coming up. And it worked out perfectly. We were down to 3 open stalls come the day after Christmas. So that is government efficiency at its best. We didn't overbuild. We were right-sizing. It's going to continue to be a conversation in the future of what to do with parking. And of course, we have goals of the airport, and everything that we do needs to incorporate into those goals. We want to increase load factors. Plainly put, those are putting more butts in seats, and that's what we need to do. I get asked quite a bit, when are we going to have more routes? When are you going to get us to Denver? When are you going to get us a new airline? When are you going to do these things? At the end of the day, what the airline does, it looks at our load factor. We're about 77, 78%. That's good. We're a good, strong market. We're a good, strong market to keep the service that we have. If we want to be better, we have to be better. So we want more, we got to go and show that we got to be in the 80th percentile for load factors. So the more you can utilize that service, the better for all of us, the better for our argument as we go to the airlines. And of course, we want to have financial self-sufficiency. That is a goal of most all airports, especially if you're federally funded as we are. We want to make sure that through our own operations, we can cover our costs and not have to be supplemented by another entity, City of Manhattan. So we comply with all the federal requirements, and we also like to see increased operations and enhanced services. And you saw the projects that are going on around the airfield, and they're doing just that. I got a thumbs up from Trent. All right, that wasn't even a get out sign. So before, please hold your applause. I will open it up to questions. Trent did say that I can ask for 2 questions. But seeing none, okay. That's the fixed base operator is going to be moving over come June. That'll be complete then. There's one. Okay.
Are there any plans to have direct flights to go maybe to Charlotte or to Philadelphia or anything like that?
Again, for any increased service, any increased routes, additional airline service, what we have to show not only just to American but to other airlines is that we're a strong enough market to sustain additional service. So whenever we look at additional flights, different routes and locations, we got to be able to show that we have increased load factors and we can sustain more opportunity at Fly MHK.
Last time Peter talked a couple years ago, about 62% of the traffic was affiliated with Fort Riley. Soldiers, families coming to see soldiers back and forth. Do you have any demographic numbers that are more recent?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but they do say that 76.3% of all statistics are made up on the spot. So I'll say yes, that sounds right. And I will not downplay, though, that the importance of Fort Riley to our community, to the service at Manhattan Regional Airport. We did do recently a study. I will go back and look at that number, and I'm going to find it for you, Tim. But there's no doubt that we have a strong presence of military activity flying commercial service for us. And so I know that's been mentioned before in the past, but it is just vital to make sure that we keep Fort Riley staffed the way it is for all of our benefits. And with that, I thank you very much for your time.
I'm John Armbrust, the Executive Director of the Governor's Military Council. I'll introduce the rest of the people that are up here with me on the post office wall in just a second. But let me give you kind of a rundown in terms of how we're going to cover this next hour and a half. We will have, the four of us, we'll have some presentations. General Grigsby will go first. And then I will clean up at the end with some remarks about how we, the communities, may respond to some of the things that are being said. After that, we will have Q&A, and my hope is that Q&A will last about 20, 25 minutes if you have that many questions. And then at 4:15, the roundtable for this particular group is going to be what I call the electronic polling. So we have the 3 questions that we will be asking, and then you will get the somewhat instantaneous feedback in terms of what you said, and that will help us have some direction as to how we might approach some things that are consistent with your desires. So with that kind of game plan in mind, let me quickly run through the rest of the group. First, on my right, your left, is Major General Grigsby, the Commanding General of the 1st Infantry Division and Fort Riley. Next is the Command Sergeant Major for the 1st Infantry Division, Command Sergeant Major Corneliuson. And next is the commander of the garrison for Fort Riley, Colonel Cole. So we will. since all of our bios are in the book, you've just had the introductions. So why don't we roll the video, and then General Grigsby will begin his presentation.
I'm Major General Wayne W. Grigsby Jr., the Commanding General of the 1st Infantry Division at Fort Riley, the best division in the United States Army.
And I'm Command Sergeant Major Kirk Nelson, Division Command Sergeant Major.
We pride ourselves on 3 important areas: being brave, responsible, and on point for the nation. These are attributes that are the foundation behind Fort Riley being the best place to live, train, deploy from, and come home to.
There's no better place to train in the world than right here at Fort Riley. From hell to victory, we are the fighting first.
When our country calls, and it will call again, the oldest, and in my opinion, the best division in the United States Army will be prepared to move to the sound of the gun.
Pretty neat video, isn't it? Done by a bunch of great civilian leaders that make up our PAO shop, maybe a couple military guys, but they did a great job in building that video, and it's truly inspirational. Mr. Armbruce, I want to thank you very much for inviting me here today, and I want to thank you
personally for everything you've done for me for the last 150 days and make me a better division commander and a better community representative within this great community. My name is Wayne Grigsby, and I am a Big Red One soldier, and I am damn proud to be a Big Red One soldier, to be part of this community. I thank you so much for inviting us here today for this great event. I am proud to be here representing the great soldiers, families, civilians, retirees, and veterans of Fort Riley and the Big Red One. I want to tell you how proud I am of our soldiers and why am I so proud of you. Now, why am I so proud of you? Midwest values, same based values. I've been in the Army for 31 years. When I leave the state of Kansas this time, I've served for 7 years in Kansas, the most I've served in any state in the United States. I've moved 23 times, and every time I come back here, it's because of those hard work ethic, Midwest values that you do not get on the coast. I'm from the East Coast. I do not want to go back. And I just appreciate everything that you guys do. It's very similar to the military. We have a high set of values, 7 values that we live by, right? And sometimes we get separated from our civilian populations. Not at Fort Riley, not in Junction City, not in Manhattan. We don't. Where it's the same values, and we help each other out. And I appreciate you creating the environment that allows us to have the best place to train, live, deploy from, and come home to right there at Fort Riley. So I appreciate that. I just returned from a trip overseas to see soldiers of the 1st Sustainment Brigade and the 2nd Brigade, led by Colonel Alan Castle and Colonel Miles Brown, respectively. Their soldiers are doing an outstanding job. They're doing a great work, and you can see the slide there. I found myself, I was in Jordan before, but I found myself sitting on a rocky hillside talking with a team of foreign Jordan Armed Force soldiers participating in an exercise led by 5-4 Cav. The partnership between the units was seamless because we are partners all the time. The partnerships we form there give our soldiers the skills they need to be effective in the most difficult missions around the world. The Flint Hills community helps us do that right at home as it does abroad. So there I am sitting on a hilltop, right? And so you got to understand what our mission is today in the Army today is where we're going. So the last 14 years, we had divisions and corps out there closing with and destroying the enemy. Major formations called Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, guess what? Our president gave us a different operational structure, which I think is pretty cool. What it is we enable our regional partners to go out and kill our enemies in their part of the world so we can sit here and have this meeting right here safe and secure. Now, I think that's a pretty neat strategy, don't you? So that means that we have small teams out there that would do that business, but the majority of us are out there partnering and enabling regional partners to do that. So for some reason, I'm sitting on that hillside, and these guys have only been there for 2 or 3 months, and they're partnered like they've been brothers and sisters their entire lives. You know why? Because it's the partnerships that we do and build at Fort Riley, Manhattan, Junction City. It's all that stuff that we do there that you guys allow us to partner with you and teach those young soldiers and leaders how to partner, what it is to work with different human beings. Well, guess what? That's what they do there all the time, and it's the only place that I've seen it done was right here at Fort Riley. So we get out there and we can get after our mission even faster and build those partnerships so we can enable them to do their mission so we can live in a safe environment. And I just want to thank you for that. This is the only place that I've seen that. This 5-4 Cav is partnering with Chapman, the elementary school and the schools out there. And so you got privates and soldiers that are out there doing partnerships, so when they get there and talk to the Jordanians, they use the same skills. If you guys haven't figured that out, that is pretty neat. Because in the Army, it's train the way you fight, fight the way you train. So we don't have to wait to go there to figure it out and take months at a time. We're doing it every day with this new partnership because what you guys allow us to do. So I just want to tell you that little story, and I saw it right there talking to Jordanians, and it was amazing. You know, about 60 miles from Syria. And we're helping them out. It's tremendous. It was this time last year when Eric Wesley took this stage to ask you for help on how to keep Fort Riley here. He spoke clearly about the importance of your attendance at the SPIA community listening session, and you listened, over 4,000. It was tremendous. That was incredible. I was in the Pentagon, just came back from a tour in East Africa, and that's the first thing I heard about when I was going to Big Red One was just the community partnership and leadership that you guys provided. So thank you very much. Next, okay, you got it there. I know that most of you in this room attended this critical event, which sent a clear message to the Army that the Central Flint Hills supports and cares for soldiers and families of the 1st Infantry Division in Fort Riley. You provided an unprecedented level of support. The Flint Hills audience made up 1/4 of the listening session population for the entire Army. So that is why it's so special about living right here in Kansas. Our Army community is part of the Flint Hills Regional Community. Our soldiers and families are embraced here like no other place in the Army, and that unique relationship is what makes Fort Riley the best place to live, the best place to train, the best place to deploy from, and definitely the best place to come home to in the entire Army. Well, in my 31 years and 23 moves. I was talking to Sergeant Danger 7, the Sergeant Major, the other day, and he said it's like this. All our games are away games, and this is our practice field. Our soldiers are successful in partnering with host nation forces because we have the best practice field in all of the Army. Because we do what we do here, we do there. And that closes the gap and allows us to be more effective. When there are areas where we have shared interests, we need to continue to partner to enable mission readiness. Our partnership with local elementary schools, universities, and sports teams benefit the community and our soldiers in ways you cannot measure. We need to keep these partnerships strong, and we will. We need to maintain these partnerships. Next slide. Over the last year, a lot has changed in our Army. But the values we share with this community and our commitment to our partnerships have not changed. The principles, the values continue even though we change leaders. We have a new Secretary of Defense, Ashton Carter. In the near future, we may have a new Secretary of the Army if it continues to move that way. I've met Mr. Fanning. Great man. A new Chairman of the Joint Staff, one of the finest generals I've served with in 31 years, our Marine Corps General Joe Dunford. Unbelievable. Anybody gets promoted from 1 to 3 in 3 days? 1 star to 3 star. He skipped 2 star, just went 1 to 3. He's got a little bit of game going on. He's a pretty good guy. We have a new Army Chief of Staff, General Mark Milley, who says mission readiness is the most important thing we do. We build ready forces, and there's no number 2 priority. A new Commander of Forces Command, General Abrams, named after the tank, his dad, General Westmoreland, and his dad in Vietnam. This guy's incredible. He's an incredible leader. And of course, you know me, phys ed major from Maryland, Prince George's County. I'm just a big Red One soldier. I try to do my best compared to all these guys. We have a great new Danger 7. You met Sergeant Major Cornelison. We have a new Deputy Commanding General from Maneuver, Kolashevsky. John Kolashevsky's unbelievable. And I think you guys all know the great Franks, Pat Frank, right? Phenomenal general. You know, I promoted him a couple months ago. Some of you came to that. He knows Fort Riley. He's been in the Big Red One forever. He may stay another year or two. I may get him a second year. We'll see how that works. But a great leader. So we have a great team there, and with all our wives. But any change in leadership brings new guidance, and our most senior leaders produce new guidance for training and shaping our forces to remain able to close with and destroy our nation's enemies for years to come. Remember, that's our mission. We're a great Army, but the only reason you pay money for this Army is to close with and destroy the enemy, so we can live in a safe environment. Next slide. You got it? There it is. Community impacts. Fort Riley is at the forefront of this training and reshaping effort. Not only have we used our tremendous training resources to a full effect, but we have deactivated a brigade and stood up DeVarty, Division Artillery, while also reconfiguring our 1st Brigade, reducing the numbers of companies in our maneuver battalions from 4 to 3. All of these changes have impacts on our post and our communities, and we've tried to communicate that. In spite of the slight decrease in soldiers in Fort Riley, we continue to have an enormously positive impact on the economy. Fort Riley trained over 22,000 partners in the federal, state, and local level last year. These people are staying in your hotels, spending money in your restaurants, and shopping in your stores. We continue to improve our training facilities and our partnership with the Reserve, National Guard, interagency partners to bring even more people to the region. We're a one Army. In a couple weeks, I'm going to bring a bunch of tags, general officers, adjutant generals from about 5 or 6 different states to Fort Riley to bring their soldiers here to train. Because you have to fight the Army you are, not the Army you want. And we are one Army, and we have to learn how to work with active, Guard, and Reserve, and we got to do the best to it. They're all good people. They all have 2 arms and 2 legs. We got to get after it. We also opened a new clinic in Junction City right off US 77. Soldiers from the active and Reserve National Guard use this clinic. Retirees and veterans use the clinic as well. They come from as far away as Abilene and Salina to use this facility. They are contributing to the economy. The new grocery store near the clinic reaps the benefits of increased traffic to the area, and so do other businesses. Our innovative Soldier for Life program, you guys heard that, turns transitioning soldiers into highly qualified employees and business owners, enriching the labor market in the region. I do a retirement ceremony once a month, and I'm telling you, over 50% of the people that are retiring at Fort Riley, guess where they're living at? Ogden, Junction City, Manhattan. They're staying right here. That's usually what happens in the Army. Your last place is where you go, so I'm kind of hoping this is it for me. I shot my first deer this year, you know, so I think I can continue to do that. I won't tell you the deer story. They had to chain it to a tree to make sure I got one. Then I finally got it, you know? All right, next slide. Yeah, here we go. Oh, this was huge, right? Events like the Vietnam Veterans Welcome Home Ceremony that we held on November 6th provide the community a chance to give our Vietnam veterans 50 years, we finally said, welcome home. That, I mean, as a leader, and I'm getting teary-eyed, as a leader, it's just one of the most proudest moments to be able to welcome home our heroes. And that 24 to 36 hours, I saw America. You know why I saw America? Because what did I do the night prior to that? You see that picture where this old man ran 100 yards in a football field? So when I turned around to see those guys, those young 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, about 6 foot something, 250 something, holding them colors, I said, you know, this is America. Our youth, they're strong. We just get after it. We get it done. You know, they have all the options of the world. America's the greatest place, you know, and I said, that's America. And then the next day, I go to the Vietnam veterans and I walk through and I see these guys, and I really saw America. I mean, about 24, 36, I just saw from the youth of our strength and the veterans of everything they've done for us. So to all you Vietnam veterans out there, thank you very much and welcome home. These are just a few examples of how our installation positively impacts the local communities. Andrew Cole, the best garrison commander in the free world, the best in the Army, will share some more stuff with you shortly. In light of the deep connections between our installation and the community, we wanted to codify our division in Fort Riley with a move into the future. Let's talk about the campaign plan. Using the guidance from our new senior leaders and input from our community partners, we reframed Fort Riley and the Big Red One's campaign plan. Much like a business plan, our campaign plan lays out our goals through 2020. This is not a new plan, though, but rather a reframe based on the hard work of Big Red One leaders, past and present. You know some of them. I'm not going to go over the entire campaign plan, but it comes from the original 2010 campaign plan done by then Major General Vince Brooks, who now is a 4-star general. I know Ben Bennett was in the audience when Major General Brooks introduced the plan, and I am sure he will let me know if I'm missing anything here. Always have critics. That's good, and I thank them for their candor. We recently rolled out the campaign plan 2020 out to the community. I would like to thank Mayor Mick McAllister and Mayor Karen McCullough for coming out to that presentation and showing their leadership. During the rollout, we explained the division's roadmap for the next 4 years. We used the rollout and meetings like this to keep our community informed and connected to the Fort Riley and the Big Red One. The campaign plan will benefit the Fort Riley community and our region as we strive to make Fort Riley the premier training installation and active Guard and Reserve, total Army, as well for our local law enforcement and federal interagency partners. With your help, we will continue to get there and be that place. The division's primary mission is to build and maintain combat-ready forces and on order deploy to fight and win our nation's wars. That's why you have an Army. There is no second priority. That is the number one priority. In addition to the training guidance that the division publishes to units yearly, we created a campaign guide as over the next 4 years with 4 lines of effort. You can see what the first one is: mission readiness. It's our number one priority. There's no number 2. Then you have sustainment readiness, community, and ready resiliency. It lays out our goals for training, equipping, facilities, partnerships, and services within each line of effort, allowing us to focus on collective efforts, prioritize resources, and maintain a flow of information and sharing information in the community. So I'm executing my mission right now by talking to you and informing. This campaign plan is designed to strengthen the enduring ties that we already have within the region. It provides us with a clear way to engage our local communities on how we're going to use our nation's resources, our blood and treasure, our soldiers, to keep our fighting, the fighting 1st Infantry Division, the best division in the United States Army, and we are the best and we are the oldest. Of course, this plan is not just for our military community. It supports our local and regional partners as well. The plan provides opportunities for you to help the division as well. Your 1st Infantry Division, your division, you pay for it, is very busy. We will not have the entire division back on Fort Riley in the near future. We will not come together as one here for a while, making the division and garrison as a 1-brigade division. There is literally no soldier at rest in the Big Red One. He's working his butt off each and every day. Next slide. During the last year, we brought 1st Brigade and the division headquarters back from the hard mission in the Middle East. We deactivated 4th Brigade and stood up the division artillery and 2 new brigade combat teams. Next slide. Our Sustainment Brigade and 2nd Brigade Combat Team, who I just visited, are deployed to the Middle East in support of Operations Spartan Shield and Inherent Resolve. In all, First ID and Fort Riley have over 4,105 soldiers deployed around the world right now. Deployed, the other ones are getting ready to deploy. And let me tell you, in 2016, we're going to step up our op tempo even more. The division headquarters and 1st Brigade Combat Team are already going through intensive training cycles, getting ready for their next mission. And our Aviation Brigade is ramping up training efforts for deployment in Afghanistan. So I just came back from the Middle East, so you can kind of put one to one together where the division headquarters may be going. And then we have a Aviation Brigade getting ready to go to Afghanistan, and then another brigade getting ready to go to another place in the world. Next slide. Yeah, it's a great slide, isn't it? Look at that title. No matter what, our soldiers, our Big Red One soldiers, remain brave, responsible, and on point for our nation. I firmly believe that Fort Riley is the best place to live, the best place to train, the best place to deploy from, and the best place to come home to in our Army. And the reason why it is because the Central Flint Hills and you people. Just know it's simple. It's about people. And you people are incredible. And that's the reason why we build the greatest soldiers that we could possibly have, because they feel like they're part of the community and you welcome them each and every day. We are only able to accomplish our mission by building strong partnerships with our local and regional communities. You are the integral part. You are part of First ID. You should stand up and say, I'm a Big Red One civilian leader every time you introduce yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because you're part of that. We're all in this thing together. This is why community engagement outreach plays such a large part of our division campaign plan. Our relationships are based on mutual respect and shared interests and positive impacts on the economy, social development for our soldiers, civilians, and communities as a whole. I have talked with you about where we have been and where we are. Now I'm going to talk to you a little about the 100-year anniversary, and I'll get off the podium here. You know, your 1st Infantry Division was built in April 1917, World War I, right? You know the 100-year anniversary is coming up. This is a big event. The 1st Infantry Division will celebrate its 100-year anniversary in 2017, in April. We are going to create a world-class event, and we're starting to plan it when I first took over command on 6 August. Not now, I've been planning it since 6 August. I've already asked former 1st Infantry Division commanders and other senior military leaders for their assistance in bringing the 100th anniversary celebration to our post, to your community. Please help us spread the word. Not only that our fighting 1st Infantry Division is going to turn 100, but also that Fort Riley and its surrounding communities are the right place to host this event. You all will be invited to come out and share this essential celebration. You have had a role in supporting the First ID in Fort Riley for a long time. You have supported our soldiers through multiple deployments in countless ways, so much so that when those soldiers head out, they know they are leaving their families in great hands. Since you have played such an important role in our past and today, it is only fitting that you join us in this centennial celebration. Again, thank you very much for allowing me to share this Big Red Run story with you. I'm going to step down from the stage and ask the Garrison Commander Cole to come up and talk to you guys. But you know what I really look forward to? The hard questions. I do. Because you know what? Relationships are good when things are always going good. But if there's challenges out here, that's how you test a relationship. And if there's challenges out there that we need to come together and understand, then let me have it. Really, I'm serious. Be very candid in your questions. I'll tell you what I know, and I'll tell you what I don't know, and I'll go back and research. But thank you very much for everything you do. Thank you very much for having me here today.
He said it goes up.
Thanks, sir. Yes, sir.
It's always tough to follow him in a briefing. I think he sets it up that way. Appreciate that. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It really is my pleasure to be back here again this year to be a part of this and to address you all and provide you some updates from some of the topics that were either open issues or to provide you updates on things that have changed out at Fort Riley. So I'm going to cut to, he gets to talk about a lot of that neat stuff in the video. I'm going to talk about some of that other exciting stuff about utilities, wastewater, plumbing, etc. With that being said, so let me just get on and get down to some of the significant issues I want to kind of cover. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our top achievements that we've done, just to recap on some of the good news. Now, I've got a number of slides. I've got about 12 slides I'm going to cover. I'm not going to cover everything on the slide, but just to highlight so that we can really focus, as my boss said, on Q&A and providing, answers to questions you all may have. With that being said, the top three here we're very proud of, and we could not have done those, again, without a lot of support and assistance from the community. So you see there, number one, about the $1.8 billion in infrastructure, and the facilities, and that piece continues as a part, again, of the 2005 Department of Defense base realignment and closure. So we continue to close that era of construction, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we've got coming on board for the next number of years, outlook-wise. With that being said, the second bullet there, we are always, and you all should always be proud of, our excellence in education. And again, to our USDs and the support that they provide, we're just blessed to be able to say that we've got 5 national blue ribbon schools within our footprint. So fantastic work there. And then finally, as my boss also mentioned, this Soldier for Life business. This Soldier for Life program is one of the Chief of Staff of the Army's priorities. When we addressed and talked about this last year, it had not fully realized itself. But really, the Army is very interested in making sure that we do our best and that mission commanders and installations do their best at making sure that they transition soldiers appropriately. So when they hang up that uniform and they come out back and we return them to the community, that they have set themselves up for success, and then they can contribute the maximum that they can using all the tools, skills, and experiences that they gleaned while they were in uniform. And part of what I'm going to talk to you about is your awareness of that program, and in those instances when you're able to, do consider about thinking about hiring veterans for your organizations. Finally, I'd like to jump down to the bottom of this slide, talking about our partnerships. So you saw some of the images where the general was able to not only continue to sustain but improve on the partnerships that we have with the 2 major universities within the region. So we're very happy that we continue to make those things better. We can't do what we need to do when we deploy, when we're overseas, without that academia support. And so we're very proud of this effort to continue to improve on those partnerships. All right, so moving down to some bottom lines here. When I came out last year, we had talked about 2 things. We talked about direct economic impact, and we talked about what the Army and Fort Riley brings in terms of indirect economic impact to the region. And despite the reductions in force size, despite the 4th Infantry Brigade Combat Team's deactivation, we've seen really a negligible reduction in the net income. Net impact. So you see there, it's just under 1.6. When I was out here last time, I had mentioned to you it was slightly over 1.6 billion. And again, that's defined as when a soldier gets his paycheck and he troops outside the gate and he puts $1 down. That's the amount when you measure that. And so we're very proud of that, and we want to continue to contribute that to the region. Now, one of the things that we were able to do was to bring out our newest economic impact summary. So we will have these in the back. We brought out a couple of 100 copies. It's this little black book here, which goes into a fair amount of detail, breaking it down into the multiple areas and show you how we arrived at the math of how we see Fort Riley and how it impacts the region. So this particular chart here, and again, you can see some of this, again, in the booklet, gives you kind of a breakdown and shows you, that reduction that the Army made from 490 to 450. It has had some impact, but not the impact that we would want it to. And part of that, again, is attributable to last year coming out for the listening session, supporting the installation, coming out with one voice, we are one, and making sure that we did not sustain further cuts. So again, our thanks to you all for your support in that effort. Okay, moving on. I'm going to kind of come through. I'm going to come back to housing. I'm going to close with housing. So let's talk about news we can use. So as my boss tells you and shows you through the videos of our deployment missions and things that we've got to do in support of contingency operations. One of the things where we have felt a reduction is troop levels on the installation. With that brigade gone, what ultimately that has done to us is it's a smaller pool of soldiers that we have to do what we call our ACP, or our access control point manning. And it's forced us to make some difficult decisions. And what you see articulated up here is the adjustments that we've had to make in terms of gate openings. And you see there within the red block, we've had to make 3 adjustments there. So now we are closed on Saturday and Sunday because we have to have that manning back. We have to give that back to the warfighting commanders so they can make sure they have the appropriate number of soldiers in their motor pools doing maintenance that they need to do to make combat-ready forces in support of missions. So that was a difficult decision to make, hard decision to make, but that's one of the changes and one of the second and third order impacts of the restructuring that the Army has done. So you see there the hours, and most of you are aware also that the access control and the access regulations have changed. And so the policy has changed. And so what we're required to do is to do what's called an NCIC, National Crimes Database check, of everyone who comes on the installation. So that has added a little bit of time. I think where we're at now is, and most of that message has gotten out. And so it requires for this database check to be done to make sure that the people who are coming through the installation gates are of the appropriate metal, and I'm happy to share that the system does work. And to date, we have already had to flag about 250 people who we found had a background that was not conducive with being around our community on the installation. And so we've had to make some tough decisions with those things as well, and with those cases. But that's an update for you. And as we move into Q&A, if you have any questions about access control, I'm happy to address those. Okay, moving on, looking towards the future. So I'd mentioned the 1.8. Here's some of the things. So just despite downsizing, here are some of the things that are going to be coming online here in terms of construction, in terms of initiatives that we're doing on the installation. So you can see there, we'll be continuing to issue under the second bullet there some task orders in support of energy performance savings. And really what this is about, it's about being green. It's about being smarter. It's about saving money, and the Army has told us we have to. So there are certain things that the Army says, hey, you can do this locally, and there are certain things that they retain control over. But one of the things that we can do is, for example, as fluorescent lighting fails, go in and replace it with LED. So as controls change that control temperatures throughout our infrastructure, replace them with updated new digital controlling that can be central controlled, and to make sure that we're being as power efficient as possible, et cetera. And so there's a lot of work that's going to be started there in support of this effort. You see there in 2021, and you know how the government works. We have a number of years where we have to say where we think we're going to do something, and then we ultimately allocate monies against it and do it. But we've got an infantry platoon battle course that we believe will be funded for construction on the installation to the tune of $7 million. So with that being said, if you are of the interest of potentially finding out what are opportunities that you may be able to take advantage of, you see there's the website link, as well as some phone numbers to our contracting office that will help you get further information on that, should you be interested in that. So next slide. Again, news you can use. I think I would be playing a broken tape if I stood up here and told you that I think that the hospital will be done next month on the installation. So, you know, we get this question a lot. So to provide you a quick update on the hospital, and really the last headlines is the hospital's not ready. The reason why the hospital is not ready is related to safety issues right now. And so we had every intention of signing for the keys at the end of this month, January. And when we went through to do an interim inspection, we found that there were some fire safety issues that needed to be addressed. And back to the question of, well, what do you do about that? Well, the answer is you don't settle for less. You don't compromise the standard, particularly when it pertains to safety. So we've gotten a lot of attention on this. We have gotten a lot of support both at the local representational level as well as the national delegation. So there's a lot of interest in this, and we think that we're going to get the appropriate pressure placed on this to get this resolved so that in 2016 we can move into our new hospital. So that's where we're at right now. So safety deficiencies are being worked off on the construction, and so we will not accept the keys to that hospital until it's ready. And that's kind of the bottom line. So that's where we're at with regards to the hospital. Okay, moving right along, as it pertains to deployment. So part of what you see here is just a recapturing of the great regional support that comes to us as we go and do our combat missions, contingency missions overseas. So we're very happy to have the support not only from Forbes, not only from Manhattan, not only from Salina, but this collaborative issue, coming up with a solution that enables the senior mission commander to put forces on an aircraft and get them out is very important to us, and we appreciate everyone who is involved in that. And so just as a little bit of a recapitulation, you'll see 19.5 thousand. So just imagine that, a lot of bodies putting troopers out to do the nation's calling overseas. And we appreciate that. Not very many military installations can brag on that. Can brag that they not only have one, not two, but 3 or 4 areas to do that from. And so we're very happy. And I know part of the discussions today, Mr. Romer also gave you all an update on that, and we're very happy for the support that we get. On the family member side, you can see there, over 8,000 on average roll out through the Manhattan airport. And we're very happy to continue to support that effort, and we're very excited to be a part of that, as we look forward to finding other lines, other channels that we can get out of Manhattan. So very proud to contribute to that. All right, on the next slide here, and in keeping with the partnership theme, we have participated, reached out, and we're working with the airport, and we anticipate by mid-spring or so to have some new and updated displays visible there at the airport. And so we're appreciative for you all letting us come out and be able to do this, working with our historic team over at the hospital, as well as to be able to present not just the modern soldier story, but also some of our history as well out at the airport. So thanks very much for that. And then finally, again, just a little bit of a recap there. Again, we're going to continue to have working meetings to figure out how do we make sure that we can best do this. Where do we deploy from? If Forbes has to be closed for maintenance, if another airport has to be closed, how do we make sure we're sequencing those so that we don't have any lapse in coverage from when we need to move forces out should we be called and asked to do that. So, all right, moving on. Workforce. In some instances, we are undermanned on Fort Riley. And so what you see captured here is what are our top employment opportunities, because we cannot seem to either fill them internally or through the federal system. So we thought it would be applicable to share, here's where we're looking for assistance. On the bottom, there's the contact information. And again, I'm sure most of these are not new in terms of disciplines, but these are job opportunities, because we know we also want to, again, have an opportunity to embrace those who are outside of our installation who may want to come and support and to be employed on the installation. And so here's where we're really looking for help. And so we pass that on as well in concert with the theme of this convention. Okay, news you can use. So here is a chart that I normally display. Many of you have seen this. So this is the updated number, which shows the net public benefit, which ultimately attempts to capture what the tax revenue is from our military soldiers who are off post in our region, as well as our Department of Army civilians. And so you can see there, total salaries for the region estimated at $456 million. And as you look at the various colored blocks, that shows the amounts in terms of county laydown. And interesting enough, one of the things we found as we looked this year at data, we found that there's been an uptick in the number of soldiers and DA civilians who are going to some of the outlying counties. So very interesting. So that was noted as we were bringing the research in. So regardless of where it's at. We're happy that they're in the region. We're happy that we're able to continue to contribute to this effort. Okay, volunteerism. So again, the Army says, okay, we want to make sure that you are doing your best to be frugal with America's taxpayer dollars. And one of the efforts that we realized that we weren't really capturing and we weren't maybe advertising as well as we could was volunteerism and capturing how both on and off post our volunteer hours are being captured and what really is either the cost avoidance or the cost savings associated with that. And so when we got this data together, you can see there it's capsulated there, and ultimately total cost avoidance there of $16 million. So we're very proud of that, and we want to say thanks to those of you who do either contribute to or refer folks to come on the installation and help volunteer. And so we're very proud of that through the Army Volunteer Corps, making sure that we capture that figure. So we think, this is part of the spirit of being part of a community. It's not just doing what you get paid to do. It's not just doing what you feel that maybe you have to do. It's about where's your heart at and what do you do when simply because you can. And so we're very, very, very proud of these statistics here. And so we want to say thanks to that. So as I kind of get ready to wrap up, I want to jump back to housing. And before I kind of go into this detail, one of the things that, and you heard the senior commander just refer to the TAG conference, one of the things that you all helped us do in participation and support of the listening session is get and really promote Fort Riley and our community to nationwide, to the greater Army. And so what we're seeing is an increase in other Department of Defense agencies wanting to come, have conferences, wanting to come out to Fort Riley and see what do we have here. They want to come out here and train. And last year we had just over 20,000 National Guard soldiers come here. And so those are soldiers who are not stationed. Those are units that are not stationed at Fort Riley, but come to Fort Riley to use the training area. Because part of our theme, if you remember, part of our virtues was that we've got this great training area. And so we're seeing an uptick. We anticipate to have about 22,000 this year come out here. Another effort that we've seen is Department of Energy and Department of Transportation. And they look at Camp Funston and they say, hey, there's a lot of room down there and we would like to come. We'd like to bring about 300 of our employees for a month. And so they'll be building in off-post in hotels in most instances. And we want to, again, there's an economic injection for us, as well as they get a great opportunity to do training. So in this particular instance, the housing community has been looking at Fort Riley. And they see that Fort Riley is one of the last, I'll call it, sometimes I refer to it as the standout. Fort Riley is one of the few Army installations who has not gone down what we call the waterfall. And when I mean the waterfall, I mean because of the force reductions and you have fewer soldiers, many installations have gone through, most installations have gone through opening their military housing to civilian and non-DOD civilian occupants. And so we haven't had to do that at Fort Riley. And so part of this effort, and so the Army's bringing the housing conference to Fort Riley this year. And oftentimes it's held at Fort Leavenworth and some other locations, but they're coming. So we're expecting over 200 folk to come down here later on in the summer. And this is just one instance of a good news story, again, that you all helped us get us on the map, get us the recognition. And so people are interested and want to know, hey, what's Fort Riley like? What's the Central Flint Hills region like? Let's get out there and maybe we should come out there and see what they're doing. So with that being said, as I talk about the housing topic, one of the things I had mentioned last year was our previous senior commander in discussions as we knew we were going into the listening session process, as we knew we were potentially getting ready to set the conditions for a potential base realignment and closure decision in the near future, we made a decision to delay the demolition of homes on Fort Riley in accordance with the drawdown. So that was a calculated decision that we made to delay that process. Most of you know, as we delayed that process, or I should say many of you know, a follow-on decision was made to not do the demo for a number of years. And recently, due to Mayor McAllister and some other of our senior community leaders' opinions, We went back, General Grigsby went back and met with senior leadership at the Pentagon. They sent out a senior representative to come out to Fort Riley to meet with leadership both on and off post, and they heard what we had to say because you all stood up and we facilitated that process. So with that being said, what this articulates is we've been able to go back to the demolition and to reestablish a new program which will see demolition resume later on this spring, early summer. This right here depicts about 160 plus units that we're going to begin the demolition process on. And so again, a lot of that is due to you all your senior officials standing up saying, hey, here's what our opinion is. And because of our close partnership, because of the relationships that we have with you all, that is going to happen. And so we're very proud of that fact. So you see here some of the details there up on Ashby Avenue. So in the Warner-Peterson housing area, we are going to start the demo process, and then we will see that process happen sooner than what the Army had turned around and asked us to do, which was in 2022. So we're very happy about that. With that being said, as part of the wrap-up, I appreciate again you all inviting me out here. I'm happy to be here with you and to provide you an update, and we'll be standing by for any questions and answers that you have following this. Thanks for your time.
I would just like to make sure that you understand I am not one of the 250 people that can't get on Fort Riley. I think General Grigsby would like that, but I made it through the system somehow. Hey, what I'm going to do is fly even higher for one chart, and then I'm going to dig way down in and provide to you some scenarios that I think are very important for us to consider as a region as we think about these partnerships. Now, I want to make sure you understand, you've heard from General Grigsby and Colonel Cole about how great our partnerships are, and they are. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, if you look at this in a relative sense, compare us to those that we should be compared to. We are easy in the 8, 9 range, with 10 being perfect. We are very good. And they have alluded to that. They have said it very directly. But here's the deal. I probably get at least one call a week asking me to help other states and communities set up similar partnerships. Just down in Alabama about a month ago. Other people are getting it, and they're starting to move forward. So if we don't raise the bar in our region, our 8s, 7s, and 8s are soon going to be 6s and 7s. And then they're going to be 5s and 6s. So we have to figure out a way to do what we've done in the past, and that is to be the leader in coming up with creative and great ways to further the partnerships that we have that we're already building on. So that's kind of the theme of where I'm going to go. But first thing I'm going to do is talk about, at a higher level. And some of this is because I can talk about it a little easier than say, gentlemen in uniform. I can say some things that they maybe can't say. As you all know, I spend a fair amount of time in D.C. doing these kind of things. So the eye water is the first one. I mean, I see that, and even I want to kind of close my eyes and go to sleep. But here's the point on this slide. I have been talking to and meeting with think tanks, mainly in D.C., but really across the country. And it absolutely amazes me that even moderate and conservative think tanks are saying the same thing about the national debt. And that is that we're simply in a hiatus right now, but it's going to get much worse. And when it gets worse, it's because our politicians have to make some choices about where some big dollars might go. And the public, through polling, has made it very clear at this point in time they put retaining and improving entitlements over national security. So what does that mean? Well, DoD funding is based on the federal budget that's working through the national debt. So, DoD budget, in my estimation, over till 2025, is not going to go up a lot. We may see year spikes and things like that. But in the ultimate, unless the public changes their mind, we're going to have very tight budgets and they may even be reduced. So the DoD has to look at the kinds of things I've got on this slide to determine how they're going to handle that. Is it going to be through manpower, modernization, or compensation and benefits? And that's really a lot of the discussion that's going on today. So what's that mean when we talk about this region and Fort Riley? Well, Fort Riley responds to the federal budget. They're in the federal budget and to national security policy. So General Grigsby and Colonel Cole do phenomenal jobs, but we have to help figure out the other problems so they can have all the funding that they need to do all the great things that they want to do. So I think that's very important to understand, because I've heard several times, well, why don't they just get more money? And believe me, they and we are trying to do that. Now, the second thing, and you've heard them talk about it, is the Army's been downsizing. Active duty was at 570,000, on its way to 450,000. We've lost the 4th Brigade in this last round, thanks to your participation in the listening session. We only took a hit of about another 615 active duty. The Guard's going to have some reductions, some in Kansas too. But when you start to reduce, what everybody starts talking about within this world of installation management and those kinds of things is that you now have excess inventory. That leads to the discussion about base realignment and closure. I can tell you that we've been talking about being on that base realignment and closure train ever since 2005. That train's picking up speed, rounding the curve, and can see the tunnel. It's supported by particularly the Army and the Air Force. Navy never supports anything, but the Army and the Air Force are. Congress, in this year's budget, authorized the Department of Defense to do what they call a capacity study, so they can prove what that excess inventory really is. That used to be the first step in a base realignment and closure process. Congress said, hey, why don't we get the data before we actually vote to have base realignment and closure? So that's what that's all about, but it's very important. And all I'm going to say on the other bullet is I can tell you that behind the scenes, new BRAC language is being drafted today and has been for the last 3 months. And I need to stop there or I'll get in trouble. But in the meantime, as we work through the political issues with base realignment and closure, how do you continue to downsize? That's a big question across the federal government. In the military, it's called the base of the future. I have been on a couple of panels in DC where we are addressing that specific issue. The real goal is to say, if we need to downsize, how do we do that? How do we shrink the footprint of a base, of an installation, and make them more cost effective? We're way ahead of the game because of our partnerships. Way ahead of the game. One of the things we have to consider, though, is we know how not only the Department of Defense, but the federal government works. What it giveth, it taketh away, and what it taketh away, it eventually giveth back. So we have to figure out how to do that in a very smart way that gives us the flexibility we need. The role I play when I go back to DC, and it's been accepted, is that communities, the region, have a huge role in how this gets done and implemented. So once again, I can tell you the reason I come back is because of all of you. They know we're ahead of the game. They want to know how we're doing it, and it's really easy for me to tell that story. So those are some things that I think we need to think about. The other thing that I just want you to know about is there's this National Commission on the Future of the Army. A good friend of ours actually chairs that, General Retired Carter Ham. There's a couple of people on that also happen to be on a national advisory board that I chair. So I've got a little insight into what they're writing, but not a whole lot. And let me just leave it like this. The reason you want to watch it, although I will tell you I'm opposed to all commissions because they're kind of like elephants mating, a lot of noise in high places and it takes forever to see what the product is. That's exactly what a commission is. But I will tell you, they're struggling with how to implement fully the total force concept. And you just heard that your commander at Fort Riley is already doing that. And so we, once again, are staying out front. And then finally, there's two things that I want you to be aware of that are kind of different than all of that. But we have two major grants that are coming to us from the federal government. And they're all going to be, the grantee will be the Flint Hills Regional Council. But the first one has to do with what's the impact if Fort Riley should continue to downsize like if the rest of the Army continues to go below 450. It's not a sure thing. It's just saying we need to be prepared and understand what that might do to our region. So we're going to look at that and say, hey, where are the areas that may have the largest impact? But most importantly, we're going to say, what do we do about it now? And then when you go through certain gates, if it happens to happen. So in my mind, for one of the few times in my life, I want to spend some money on a study that I hope we put on the shelf and never use, but I want us to be ready and do the things that we need to do now in case it does happen. The second one I want to talk a little bit more later about, but it's a joint land use study. We did one of these in 2005. This is where you look at noise contours, all kinds of technical stuff, and you worry about zoning and planning, and you put all that together. And you're going to hear me talk just a little bit more about that kind of thing. In both cases, there's going to be times for public input. And it's absolutely critical that you and your people that work with and for you give us input. Otherwise, we'll just start making stuff up, and that's not where we want to go. We need your input. So when you see there's public input times, please participate in that. Okay, so I'm going to now get down to what do we really do with some of the things that were talked about. How do we elevate ourselves in terms of our partnerships? It's going to be really tough because when you're in the lead, it's hard to stay there, number one, but it's hard to get further in the lead. But we're going to do it. We can do it if we want to do that. So the first thing I always look at is, do we have anything in common with Fort Riley that we can, look at and we're already partnering, or we might, are there new areas? So this slide is not designed to say this is the end-all be-all in terms of the common threads that we have. But I think if you look down through the slide, you will agree that, for example, public health, the Army faces an obesity problem, community faces an obesity problem. The Army faces mental health challenges, the region faces mental health challenges. These are all areas, as you scope down through here, that we work independently, but we also work together. I'm not suggesting we're starting at ground zero. Remember that score of 8 to 9, scored 10. I'm going to focus mainly on the last two bullets in the next couple of slides. And that's about the infrastructure needs and this joint land use planning. Because here's the deal for all of this. As I say up here, the community, the region, really is restricted in our economic potential if we don't resolve infrastructure issues together. It really does affect our potential. So many of the great things we want to do won't be able to do if we don't solve some of those problems. Same thing's true on Fort Riley. Because if they don't solve it, it affects their ability not only to interface with us, but more importantly, to really support the new and changing missions that they may get, or things that might come to Fort Riley that couldn't come if we didn't have the infrastructure set the way we need it set. And that's some of the stuff Colonel Cole talked about. And then finally, we have got to concern ourselves with this land use planning so that we can all grow in the region and they can continue to have all the space that they have for training. And if we don't do that together, that's where the impact will be. So let's take a look at a couple of things quickly. I'm going to start on this slide, and again, this is going to be hard to articulate for me because remember, we're trying to go be 8 and 9 where we are and stay there or maybe even get a little bit further ahead of everybody else. But here's the deal. They talked about economic impact. We know what the economic impact is. I would challenge you to think about whether we know how Fort Riley truly impacts our region. We know the $1 billion thing, but how do they really do that? I mean, what is it? And I will tell you it's more than somebody sitting on some board that's putting a plan together. It's something that we haven't done in this region. I've seen it kind of approached in a couple other states, but nobody's done it successfully. But what we do when we plan, as you well know, is we get to the fence line at Fort Riley and it becomes a blank space. It's like we can't touch it. So we look at all these community development, economic development possibilities, but we stop at the fence line. So if you go to the third bullet, I'm not going to go through each of these, but there are indeed a lot of things on Fort Riley that we can work together on, that we can use. They've got things that they can use. We've got things they can use, but we tend to let that fence line make them just a blank space. So we can look at if they have excess facilities. We can look at ways that we might be able to use part of those. They do have industrial capacity on the fort. I don't know if they have excess, but if they have excess capacity, we can look at those areas and determine ways that we can use it along with them. It'll make them more efficient, and it will help our region. So I'm proposing that one of the things you consider, and you're going to have a few seconds to consider this when we do the electronic polling, is that we jointly determine what that third bullet should really look like. Where are the areas that we can increase our economic development and community planning with each other, and they aren't white space? And then we jointly recapitalize the areas that we can work in. Each community in the entire region spends time recapitalizing all the time. Their businesses, their business parks, their ball fields, everything, we recapitalize. There are things on Fort Riley, they recapitalize. There are places, such as Connecticut, where they're working really strongly in this area together, and they're recapitalizing things on installations, and the community, the state, the installation are all putting money in, and what it does is it makes the installation flexible and cost efficient, and it solves some of the economic development concerns that the community has. So, pretty deep, but something that I think we need to consider if we're going to truly elevate where we are, and I think that's absolutely mandatory that we think along those lines. I think while we do this, what we have to make sure that we do is that we do it in a way that allows General Grigsby and his folks to continue to meet his mission needs, and they are going to be complex and changing. And at the same time, we, as a region, continue to grow the way that we want to grow. Now listen, that's not easy because there's some of these things that we're right up against each other in terms of how we do that. So I took a few, again, this isn't totally complete, but I took a few things and said, let's look at what General Grigsby and Colonel Cole talked about a little bit, and how might we better work together. So look at training support. You know, we can't go out there and train, but what we can do is make sure that we are planning to use the land around us in a way that's compatible with their mission needs. You can do things right up to the fence line, but you can't put high-rise apartments there, okay? But there are a lot of things you can do, so we have to figure that out, and that's what this joint land use study will help us do. I put a couple of things that we might want to that we have to consider. You do realize that when we build in certain areas, there are species that are near the endangered list, and we build there and we push them towards Fort Riley because that's open land. They train on it, but there aren't people there every day or there aren't certain areas, and it starts to inhibit their ability to fully train. And if we're going to remain the best place to train in the Army, we can't do that. Natural resources, kind of boring, waters your eyes, but you know, Fort Riley has to have a natural resources plan. I would contend that the region has various pieces and parts in various documents, but do not have a regional natural resources conservation plan, and it certainly doesn't mix necessarily with what Fort Riley has. So we got to look at that. Deployment support. Look, it's really simple, and they talked about it. Roads, the airports, and rail. It's really critical to them. And we can work together on that. We are, but we've got to work better. I would suggest to you that there are things, roads on Fort Riley, that the state and the region can help them with if we don't treat them as a blank space, work together. And sometimes that'll help us coordinate the timing of those things so they make sense. The airport you've heard about, and I'll tell you one area that we got very involved in, and that's the rail. When the spurs got put in, the state got very involved. Locally, there was some involvement. We worked with Union Pacific, and now we've kind of dropped that. If they don't have any more needs, we have to understand we may have real needs and need to work with them on some things to make sure that we're doing the things that we want. And then he needs to make sure his soldiers, family, and the veterans are taken care of. He's talked about that. I put a lot of areas down. You've heard about most of them. But we need to really figure out how we sync all those things together. So here are some things that you might want to consider. Number one, when we do this joint land use study, we don't kind of figure out if we're implementing it, but we specifically put the recommendations that we have agreed to in all planning and zoning documents. And we do that early in the process. The region may want to consider developing and coordinating a natural resources master plan. It'll take us another step up in this world. How do we take care of veterans? They've got Soldier for Life, they've got the Soldier, the TAP program, and we have some phenomenally great programs in the region, but they're all individual in terms of veteran transition. Some phenomenally great programs, some coming on board. We do not have a regional plan. If we put a regional plan together, it'll make a big difference on our workforce, and we'll be able to retain even more. And finally, I would tell you that we've got some great health care in our region. It's just a personal thing of mine, but I think we can do a lot better job of coordinating in the healthcare region than we are right now. And it'll help them, and it'll help us too. So what's my bottom line? Look, we have to elevate. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And it's hard because we're really out front. So we can't do the easy stuff. We've already started that and done it, or we're doing it. So we now have to take our 8 and 9 and keep it an 8 and 9 in a relative sense. So you can see what I said here. I think we have to develop a strategy that allows Fort Riley to be flexible but keep meeting their mission needs while we continue to prosper and grow in the region. I think to do that, we certainly have to leverage the great partnerships that we have today. But then I think that we have to enhance those partnerships by making sure we no longer consider Fort Riley a blank space, because we can do a lot of things we aren't doing today. And then when we do all this, we have to publicize it. People have to know that we're the best place to live, train, deploy from, and come home to. We know it, and we're trying to get the word out, but we need everybody to do it, and if we elevate some, that'll happen too. So, pretty deep, giving you something to think about. Whew. I know who you want to ask questions of. I'm going to monitor that. I'll be glad to answer some, but we'll be here during the reception too, which is next. But we have a good almost a half hour. If we don't use it all for Q&A, then we'll go into electronic polling. But questions? I know you have them, so we just have to get the first one or two out of the box.
I'd like to take the commander's hunting trip a little further. Congratulations on the deer. I think there'd be an opportunity, it's a little far out there, to hunt down tornadoes. Weather-wise, we can track them down. You see the Hook Echo out there, and then there's new satellites and the phase radar systems. You get a one-day ahead warning where the tornadoes are. See them on there, you could launch a missile into them and put them at that 1,000 to 5,000 foot level, and if it gets under 870 millibars, a high expansion explosion would snuff it out. People have done it with M80s on fires, and we've done it with combines on whirlwinds and things too. So the military could help with that. It'll come about. I've got a trademark on the Tornado Vader. But also along that line, I've been doing work with Kansas State University and Joe Hartner in there. And we really need an E-farm, experimental farm with advanced robotic machinery for our students. Seating area is not large enough. I've drawn up some plans and stuff for the Hunter's Island area. It would be great to put a 300-foot big base building in there, similar to the Superdome down in New Orleans, with a tower up the center. Be able to utilize that tower to draw wind in and do tornado research and wind damage.
Let's get to a question here.
And then the third part would tie into the people over in Wamego, Tornado Vader Thrill Ride, where we could have people come in and enjoy that tornado ride that they've experienced or heard about in their life but never been there. So it'd create economic development for Geary County, Riley County, and
Thank you.
Pot County.
We have anybody with a question? We've got one up here. Just a minute. They're getting the mics around because I'm getting at the age I'll probably forget what your question is by the time I have to repeat it, and that doesn't work real well. There you go.
Thank you, John. Kind of preaching to the choir, and I've been trying to emphasize this every year. I believe that Fort Riley should be the first premier renewable energy fort in the United States, not only that, the world. Another thing is the Army could help by, after the studies, I spoke with Colonel Cole several times on this subject, but once that study's done on the utilities for gas, electricity, the government's always looking how to save money. It's going to be give a little, take a little. The Army might have to give some of that land or have us use that jointly with them, kind of like with Pasern and Caveris, but there's got to be some interaction. There's got to be some getting everybody on the same sheet. Another thing with the gates, if one gate's closed, route them another way, or bring I-70 in around the Chestnut that they've been talking about years ago, and give some land again for that effort. And let the soldiers come out that gate, let them go through another gate. There's a lot of things that can happen.
Okay, we'd really like to have a question rather than a statement. Do we have anybody's got any questions? We have a real opportunity with the gentlemen that are up on the stage to answer all the questions you might have. Just a minute. Colonel Cole's got something that, as a matter of fact, I whispered in his ear.
Sir, I've got your tornado question down. So when we break, I'd like to chat a little bit more with you about that. But I've got that one noted. Yes, sir. So as we continue to talk about being green The Army as an enterprise, the greater Army, continues to look at how do we make sure that we're looking at energy savings, cost savings, renewable energy, and the Army manages that process. So there are certain things that we are unable to handle at our local level, and because of the capital required in infrastructure for those types of projects, the greater Army manages that. And so the Defense Logistics Agency is the Army's executive agent for looking at installations across the continental United States and determining in priority which ones of those should be looked at for privatization and other energy initiatives. And so right now, Fort Riley, we were on for, I think it was 2021, I believe it was, and we previously got ourselves accelerated for consideration for privatization of our utilities for 2018. So with that being said, right now, the DLA is looking at the 4 commodities, so your gas, your refuse, your electricity, and your water. They're looking at, along with a third-party consulting organization, to determine which of those 4 are going to be privatized on Fort Riley, and then what way ahead is it. So I appreciate that question. Right now, because it's being analyzed on which of those 4 commodities, we cannot carry any significant amount of work forward with that, because it's under DLA as the executive managing organization right now. But I appreciate that question.
Sir, thank you for being here. Thank you for the information that you've passed to us. Thank you for the update. My name is Mick McAllister, and I am a Big Red 1 civilian.
I know you are.
The question I have today is in 2006, then Garrison Commander Colonel Ty Smith told the communities surrounding Fort Riley, you need to build 6,000 homes for those troops coming back out of Europe. The communities responded and did so. In 2010, 22 communities, 7 counties, agreed to raise the inventory of housing on the installation from 3,514 to 3,827. I see that we're a little bit above that number today. My question to you is, with that major decision, that 3827, are we going to get back to that 3827 inventory number?
Huh? Yes. No, yes, sir.
I have a mic. Well, he put it up there. He said, I'm going to turn it over and let Colonel Cole and General Grigsby get all the questions. So once again, I'll bookend on this one. So thank you, sir, for that question. Yes, the right now, 3,827 is our inventory in state on the installation. And so there is a glide path for us to arrive to that. My previous comments about the Army, the Army's 2 guidance ago was that they wanted us to arrive at that in the year 2021.
Right.
And so with that being said, that was about my comment about the communities expressed a desire for that plan, that number to be moved to the left and accelerated. And so that was the conversation that we've recently had. That is what created the conditions for us to resume and to relook that glide path.
That's why I went back in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I went back and engaged because of that. Is there some promise? Can you hear me? What I tried to tell my teammates back in D.C. and the business model people, that's good, but I live here, right? And I had to balance that because there were some things, promises were made, and stuff like that, and you just you play from where you sit. I understand their business model, but I understand the people that give most to Fort Riley and around in the surrounding community. So that's why I went back and engaged. Yes, sir.
Well, that's kind of follow on with what I had to say. Right now, it looks like you have about 5,200 soldiers living off post, approximately. And my question is back to the number of on-base housing. You know, as on-base housing continues to grow and the Army continues to cut, there's going to be more and more more people, it used to be years ago we had to live on post. You never could move off post because of post housing was there. And my question is, are we going to get to the point again where certain promotion levels, certain sergeants, colonels, or lieutenants, or whatever, going to have to live on post, or is it going to be still an open area?
I don't think so, sir. I haven't heard anything. I have not heard anything about that come from my bosses on a decision like that. Have you? No. You, Sergeant Major? And Sergeant Major?
No, sir. And just a simple fact that the housing is privatized, we would have a very hard time forcing a soldier in that aspect, forcing a soldier to move into a contract, because now, when you're talking about, sir, it used to be, no money was really changed hands. A soldier lived with his family in the house. Right. Now, say when I got to Fort Riley about 90 days ago, I had to, just like I would deal, it's a civilian organization, so I had to sign a rental contract, money comes out of my check. So that's where we run into the conundrum of making, forcing a soldier to, enter into a contract that he or she may not want to. And then that gets back to the waterfall. The Army's answer is the waterfall concept, and Colonel Cole can talk about that all day long. I know he enjoys talking about the waterfall concept.
Yeah, I've got a question. As technology changes and your equipment changes, and obviously I think over the years how you fight a war has changed, is Fort Riley been given that new technology and those new equipments? Because I know every fort has a different reason and what they do, and last thing we want to do is kind of be antiquated because we're heavy equipment or whatever, and I was just curious about that.
Well, we have the most current upgrades to the M1 tank, also the M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. We have the most current upgrades. We're getting the Gray Eagle unmanned aerial vehicle.
About 9 of them. About 9 of them.
Yes.
We talked about those today. Yeah.
So we have state of the best unmanned aerial vehicles, and we're able to fly them further than any other post in the Army.
Yeah, I can fly them all the way to Smoky Hill and go inside the FFA. This is another reason why it's such a great place to train, because we use a lot of those systems where we're going to go to, and we don't have to wait to get there or to go to a NTC or California or something like that. We can do it right here on post.
Our maneuver area, I just came from, before this assignment, Fort Hood, Texas. Fort Hood, Texas training area is much larger than Fort Riley. However, the way Fort Hood is set up with the impact area, units, once they go into the maneuver area and they start firing, it shuts down great big portions of the maneuver area. So I was surprised to learn, this was my first time at Fort Riley, that we can actually maneuver larger elements at Fort Riley, even though it's much smaller.
That's because of the terrain and the barriers that cause that, and the way the terrain. We pay a lot of money across the Army just to redo our dirt because we tear it up, and it's so. And here it's special. You don't have to spend as much because it's just a pretty good dirt. It really is. That's what I was telling you about, the best place to train. It's pretty amazing, and no one knows. I'm trying to get everybody to talk about it. So you want to do me a favor? You talk to your buddies back in D.C. and let them know just how great this place is, so they know about it. And I'm getting generals out here. Sullivan's coming, retired Sullivan at AUSA. He's coming out in a couple weeks. McChrystal's going to come out. We're going to get General Miggs out here. I'm trying to get more leaders out here to see us, so they just know how great this place is. But politics is local, so you talk to your locals, get it back to D.C., and they'll come out and see us. It's pretty tremendous.
Hey, we have time for 1 or 2 more at the most.
One quick question on the creativity and the collaboration possibility and the fact that you're talking dirt. When General Brooks was there, I brought up the subject of perhaps having that great Corps of Army engineers practice and train by helping us build a road in the community that we need, doing some design work. And he said, well, I'd probably have to go all the way to the top to ask that.
Yeah.
But since we have that training opportunity and we could certainly use your skills, I wondered if that could be brought up again about maybe perhaps doing a north bypass, Juniata, over to Pot County.
Right.
And we could collaborate on that. So I resubmit that as a possibility.
Yes, ma'am. For some of our guys, some of our engineers, we have 2 engineer battalions, not engineer battalions, but engineer outfits. They have their engineering license. Some of that stuff would be good to come out and do some partnering with. I don't know the legalities of it, but come out and talk about it and partnering and learning each other's craft and all that stuff. We can probably do that right now. I don't know if we can put machinery to work, but
the taxpayers are already paying your salary, so if we could make it lighter
I'm with you.
by this, and we would really show collaboration, I'd like you to think about that.
Well,
See, that's a so I really appreciate that comment.
That is.
And that's really getting back to
Right.
exactly what Mr. Armbruster was talking about with this partnership effort. And again, it's just being able to come to the table and talk about some of the areas where we may have some interests that are moving in the same direction.
Right.
So we have National Guard engineer units that come out to Fort Riley as well.
All the time.
And so I want to make sure we chat, ma'am, to get that information.
So that's a good point. So I got this tag conference coming up with 5 or 6 different tags from different states, and they're always looking for things to do on the weekends and stuff like that. I got something I can offer up. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, quick question here. We have a lot of businesses here, and we have K-State and a lot of other higher education. And one of the things you mentioned was having a regional veterans transition master plan, and I think that's a great idea. And I know we have things piecemeal together. I wanted to know what your impression of what we have right now for that transition, and what does good look like? Whether we can get there or not, but what does that bar look like as far as from the military perspective? Because we're talking about workforce right now here too.
Yeah. But I'll tell you right now, I think we had the best in the Army. The Army put out a standard, and we're way above that standard on how we do business. We just got to coordinate a little better and communicate a little bit more, and then it's on my leadership, my leaders, to make sure we give soldiers time to prepare to do that and go through this process. But the Soldier for Life program that we have in the Army is a basic foundation. But I would tell you what we do here at Fort Riley, what we do at K-State, what we're starting to do in partner with KU and all the communities around here to reinforce that and give soldiers opportunities to go out. See, the deal is with the Soldier for Life, it's just not about getting out. The stuff that we teach them, they make better soldiers too. So it's a win-win for all of us. And going back to the money piece, one of the scientific reason why we do this Soldier for Life is, you know what? You know how much money we pay in unemployment insurance? I'd like a soldier to go out and get a dang job. So I could take some of that money and put it towards training. And there's like 48% of the money of the budget of the Army that we don't touch when we start cutting down. We can't touch it because that's our pay, that's our retirement, that's all that stuff. So when you start talking about Army cutting money, we're only touching 52% of the money that we can touch. So, and it takes $65 million to train an Army Brigade combat team to go from coming together and being able to close with and destroy the enemy. $65 million. I'd like to take some of that, if I get more soldiers for life and make them better partners in the community and go out and get a job and don't have to pay the unemployment insurance, I can put more money to doing that and meeting our mission. So this is the bigger, that's the bigger piece of it. We just need to coordinate it a little bit better. I have a 5-man team that I pulled out that does that for the 1st Infantry Division. That's their whole job, Soldier for Life program. And we're trying to get that out more. And I'd love to come down and sit down and talk to you about it, or invite the community in to talk about it, because I'm sure there's many ways that we can do that. But it's a good question.
Okay, there are going to be more questions, I know. General Grigsby, Colonel Cole have agreed that they're going to be here through the reception. So please take advantage of that. If you had questions, we couldn't get to it. I just want to quickly respond a little bit more to that one, which I'm talking about the community side. They've got programs. We have a whole bunch of individual efforts, and it's how do you put them together so the whole thing is seamless. It'll make everybody a lot more efficient. Am I the one controlling the next set of stuff? I don't care. I'm not sure what it is. Oh, okay. We're going to do this poll, and for those of you who were here last year, it's the same thing. But I believe there are some sheets on your table that tells you the number that you text to. Trent's holding up one example. I think every table has several of them. So make sure that you get to your text icon and open it up. I know you know how to do that. So you know how to create a message on your text, but it's the phone number that's on your table. And then in the to section, it tells you to put the poll phone number. Pretty standard. Is everybody kind of keeping up with this? I would assume you do this every day. Okay? And there's the poll number that you should be putting in that block. And like any good organization, you put the qualifier at the bottom that says, we're not going to have a clue what you did individually. And that's really true. We want the trend going on here. Okay, everybody ready? Anybody have a question about how we're going to do this? Okay. Oh, gee. Okay. I forgot. So we're going to have 3 questions with multiple choice answers, and you put as you can see here, you will put your number in for the one that you choose to make a priority, if that's what we're asking you for. Okay? If this works, we'll give you about a minute to punch in your answer, and then relatively quickly, we're talking seconds, we should see the result for each one so you can see what you are telling us in terms of direction. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I hadn't seen these. I may have seen them, but I forgot them. So you can only do it once for each question. In other words, you can't answer it multiple times. Okay, first question. We've talked about increasing the information flow between the region and Fort Riley so that we truly become a seamless regional group, a seamless partnership. So we're asking you to say the most important thing, most important information that we would like to receive from Fort Riley on at least a quarterly basis is where the troop levels and civilian levels are on post, anything to do with their veteran activities and their statistics about how many are coming out and how might that affect workforce, on-post housing, how much, where are they with the program that they've set in place, any changes to the gates that be made, closures, openings, time frame closed down, or the status of current construction projects and anything that might be upcoming. As a business person, you may want to know that if you want to work on those projects. I know you may want all of those, but we want to know what you think is the most important. So starting now for about a minute, you have to put in your number and send it in.
Oh, okay.
So it says, well, you can see it.
Cool.
That surprised me, but that's very useful information to know that you really want to know what you got on, what's on post. I mean, may that change? Where might it be going? When might it come back? Those kind of things. So we will work with Fort Riley, and we will make that happen. That doesn't mean you're not going to get the other information, but we certainly want to make sure that we look at that and all the rest of them. Okay? Next question. Okay, I talked about some potential efforts in terms of elevating our partnerships. So this question is, if we do something in 2016 to jointly work together to become seamless with Fort Riley, what types of, where should we begin from your perspective? And because we can't do everything all at once. Do you want us to do that effort to look at the various areas on Fort Riley and in the community that we might be able to do more activity? Do you want us to first of all, look at the Natural Resources Master Plan? Is your priority to have a regional veterans transition plan? Do you think we should focus more on health care and coordination of the health care in the region? Or do you think that we should be a little more active in the land use planning? We work together now, but figure out a way to get some things put together a little earlier and make sure that that the communities can grow, but so can Fort Riley do their mission. So you have a minute to determine where you might like to go in 2016. There we go. This is your more complete answer. So you see we have 2 things that you really want us to look at, and that is to identify what I termed, and I didn't mean to upset anybody, but as blank space that we consider, and really start to look at those areas that have to do with economic and community development. And then, through the joint land use planning, that's going to be coming down, that grant we're going to get, we'll get right on and make sure that we really work on that, but we're going to need your participation. Again, we'll look at many of these things, but that gives us a sense of direction. Third one, and this is the last one. We didn't want to have too many because we knew drinks were right next. Okay. I will tell you I had a little concern about putting this one up, but it's important for us to understand as we work together.
That's good.
And this was rather personal, I get a lot of feedback about, well, you talk about enhancing these partnerships and working together, but I have a little problem, how do we work with Fort Riley? And my question is, so what's your real concern? Is it that it's too complex, too much red tape because it's government-oriented, process-oriented? Is it that every time we get started, but we really don't know what the future is going to look like? Is that every time, and General Grigsby noted this in his briefing, we change leadership, so some emphases and priorities change, and that makes it very difficult to really focus on these longer-term, harder-to-reach things? Is that I don't get enough information from Fort Riley in a timely manner, and I need to get that before we do this? Or look, I think everything's phenomenal, and I don't have any concerns. So you have a minute to let us take a look at...
Candor.
Yeah, real candor.
Candor on this.
We need the candor. We're not, I tell everybody I'm really not overweight, I just have thick skin.
No.
Yeah.
Is that leadership change? Is that base leadership?
Yeah, post. No, post. We're talking about, so General Grigsby comes in. Now, he may have been given some additional or a changed mission.
Good idea, Ferry.
So it may be that he's got to change some priorities. Well, we need to understand what that is, and he's told us. But some people say, that's why we don't want to do this elevation, because it relies on the fact that we have some consistency. Excuse me. The lack of predictability about the future. And so we'll see how we can kind of weave some of these things into. Yep, he just said we have to communicate more, but this helps us immensely so that we're not spending all of our time thinking we're solving the issue when in fact we're on the things that you don't consider the most important. So we're done. I think we hit our mark. You've been a great audience, but remember that these gentlemen, all of us will be here during the reception, so please feel free to come up and continue the dialogue. Thank you very much.